All right, y'all. Welcome to All Politics of Local America's number one
One.
radio talk show. Y'all know if it is Friday, y'all know it's time for All Politics of Local. So you all know it is coming down to crunch time. We're almost at June 10th, which is, of course, you all know the primary election for the governor in the state of New Jersey with our beloved brother, the one and only Mayor Ras Baraka. So that's fast approaching. So we're going to have that as a major part of the show tonight. But up first, we're going to talk to some young people that we're going to have on, and of course, we'll get into some conversation with them, and then of course at 8:30 we'll talk a little hip hop. Brother Zaid, can you talk a little bit about the people that are the kids that are going to be coming up and so forth at 6 o'clock? The first group of people.
Student journalists from Public Square Amplified are returning. They were here some months ago with one of their teachers, Josie Gonsalves, right? And it's good to have them back. And it's a lot for them to talk about because they are trying to figure out, and this is no easy task in this moment, how to become journalists in a crazy, reactionary, dangerous time to try to be a journalist and truly honoring the canons of principle of journalism in the age of Trump, right? So we're looking forward to having these young folks back. Now, I know Josie wants to fall back and let them talk as a good teacher would, but I would like for her to come aboard and introduce them and reintroduce our audience to Public Square Amplified, and then we'll have this roundtable with these emerging voices on how they see the world and how they want to contribute to it professionally. So we're
Yeah,
looking forward to that conversation. They've been here before. It's good to have them back because a lot has happened since they were with us last, and it's a real shift that a lot for all of us to deal with, and it's interesting to hear how they're going to take this on themselves.
indeed. Yeah, particularly in this time, man, when a lot of what's being said is not being fact checked. Um,
Facts
and
don't matter.
people are making those kind of making statements. Yeah, yeah. I mean, Kim sent me something where she said that the president was sitting down with the president of South Africa. And he was showing him the wrong pictures and claiming that those pictures were dead bodies in South Africa buried with crosses on them. And there was evidence to prove that that wasn't even in South Africa,
No, it wasn't.
and he was attributing that to the president, and he was sitting there trying to say, "Where is this?" And the president was showing them pictures and telling people what a tragedy it was. And let me tell you what was sad about that is the fact that they even had Elon Musk standing up there. You know what I mean? So that was crazy, man. So this is a tough time for these young journalists, but I'm sure that this is going to give them a heck of an opportunity to be able to find their way in the world. I see Josie back there, but I see some of the young people. So um, I don't know if you want to wait for her to come on or if you want to bring these young kids on. I know you just said you wanted to have her introduce these kids.
And introduce the program.
I
And
see she,
introduce
yeah.
Public Square Amplified because that's the context. Public Square Amplified is a teaching platform for young journalists, and Josie is the founder and one of their principal teachers. Josie, you know what to do.
Hi, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It was a
And
joke.
Josie, congratulations! I just got word. Somebody by the name of Josie Gonsalves got them a show on WBAI-FM Pacifica Radio when you can talk about these capitalist monsters like a dog and be all right.
Um, well,
Congratulations.
it's great to be here again. As always, I'm an avid fan, and I try to give you guys a hard time as often as I can. and it's a lot of fun. And so I appreciate the platform. There are not many Black platforms for us, or not many Black newsrooms in New Jersey. There are probably about 15 Black publishers, so 15 probably digital news platforms for the Black press. Very small number, and not large budgets. So it's really great to be here and to collaborate with All Politics Local. So I'm really happy to be here and to be with the young people who are going to be here. So this is great. Yeah.
Let me just ask you something. I got to ask you something, because it's something we never talked about on this platform.
Yeah.
But now, we're bringing your students back in since the Trump reemergence, right?
Right.
And one of the first things he did was attack so-called DEI. You have been attacked on DEI before Trump, right? You got your own real life experiences in what should have been a progressive space. Got to say categorically, what happened to you should not have happened to you in that space at that time, but it did.
Sure. So, I can certainly talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, so by way of introduction,
sure. Yeah.
That is these young professionals try to find their way. You're not coming out of the sky, and you're not in some abstract space from them. You're a real Black woman who goes through all the real stuff Black women go through, right? And you ain't no milk toast bourgeois Black woman neither. Right?
Yes.
So all of that, there's a lot comes with that. So by way of introduction, by way of you introducing Public Square Amplified, the mission of Public Square Amplified, and these amazing young people, you need to, you can share what they call in their generation your origin story.
Sure. I mean, it's a long one because I've been around for a long time, so it's a long one. But it's I've had a few battles, yeah.
Let us stop you. So when you say a long time, me and Zaid take offense to that, because I think we've been around a long time too.
Well, I'm right there with you. So with AI, as AI sort of develops, and we're going to age so much faster. We're going to be around so much longer. But I've not sort of talked about it on any platform. WBGO, Newark Public Radio, I had a stint there, and I organized both the white and Black staff, and organized around massive changes. The organization at the time had 0 people of color in its executive team. I raised that somebody from Newark, somebody who was born in Newark and part of the history of Newark, should be on the executive team, and we should look at opportunities for that. I also sort of raised the challenge around equal pay. Black reporters and Black hosts were being paid way less. And so there were issues around pay equity, around power and access to power and decision-making, and all of these things that really matter. And because it was, it was built on Amiri Baraka's blueprint, public radio.
That's right.
That's right. And this, this is, jazz is American music. It is Black music, and so it should be owned and driven. And it was my position, and so we organized. I organized and waged a campaign, and I was terminated by the board chair at the time. They brought in attorneys, and we challenged them to get attorneys. And when I wrote my white paper and my demands, it was not about me. It was about all the demands that I thought were necessary to build an equitable space, a space that gave particularly people from Newark full citizenship in the running of the organization and decision making. If you look at the board, if you look at the community advisory committee, and you looked at the staff, it was that Newarkers weren't visible in the space, and the challenge I knew would bring down the axe on me, and it did. I was terminated. But people continued to fight until, of course, they were gotten rid of as well. Radio matters, all the channels and access to outlets for our story, and the way in which we view the news matters, and we should have many more of these platforms, and even more so today. Right now, for example, we're in New Jersey, we're also under the gun for public funding for news. And so there's a resolution afoot to put back into the coffers monies to support local news organizations. And we're one of those organizations, along with about 6 or so Black outlets. So I'd love to, we can talk more about that. But so, yeah, the fight for creating a space for Black liberation and creating a framework to think about power and justice and access through Black liberation has always been sort of at the core of the work. And so Launch in Public Square came out of recognizing and observing that we needed a space around civics and civic engagement and media literacy. And so Public Square Amplified was launched to engage young people in thinking about the press and the power of the press, to get activists to think about journalism as a tool to wage campaigns, and also to get reporters and editors to think critically about what we call liberatory journalism or emancipatory journalism, to use a particular framework to tell our stories. And so our stories should be grounded in historical framework and context. We should report from the periphery, meaning those voices and communities and movements that live on the periphery and are pushed constantly to the periphery. We center those voices and those stories and those communities. That matters to us. And we say, if you're in our space, we want to address issues around human rights, global warming, capitalism, race, and policing and justice and all of those things. And we cover those stories and we try to do them in the best way we can. And we are constantly learning and growing and evolving. So we want everyone to sort of follow us, read our stories, share our stories. Come on board the PSA train, so to speak.
Well, the output has been beautiful too. I have to say that.
Well, we've also, 7 of our journalists have won awards as well. Multiple awards, actually. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's really great stuff. It's really great stuff. And it means, several things, just very quickly, and we bring them in. One, it broke my heart with what you went through at WBGO. WBGO was my first taste of public radio. Mm-hmm. When I was at Rutgers, this story. I had a jazz show at Rutgers Newark, and of course, Rutgers Newark still doesn't do anything anywhere near what it should in terms of this media area, right? And I was struggling, cussing at the administration to connect with WBEO, which is in walking distance from the campus, and the New York City network and all of that, and nobody listened. So my music never went beyond the Paul Robeson Campus Center, right? But there was a relationship with WBGO, that I had of my own, and just in terms of its value to community and what it brought in terms of the legacy of the music, right? Mm-hmm. And then hear this, what you went through, just really broke my heart. I have to tell you, it broke my heart in a million pieces.
I knew that there would be. I knew that I would, and people knew, and I'd prepared everyone to say, listen, it would be easy to get rid of me, but they had to continue to fight. And so we organized in preparation for my termination. That was also part of the organizing work that we did. Organizing is hard work. And, particularly today when we see what it takes, there are always going to be sacrifices. Yes. But if you organize in a collective, then people catch you. I didn't know the mayor. Ras Baraka is running for office of the governor's office right now. I didn't know the mayor at the time I was at WBGO. And the mayor wrote a letter demanding my job back and went on to the radio station and said this was retaliation. I I never thanked him for doing that. He didn't know me. It was not, and I think he stood up, understanding that this Newark public radio, this WBGO, really belonged to the community, and I appreciated that. So thank you, Mayor Baraka.
Yeah, right on to that, and right on to all those spaces that from which we developed. This is Malcolm Centennial. Malcolm tried to bring that kind of energy into the Nation of Islam, creating Muhammad Speaks for Elijah Muhammad. They didn't quite understand that. Right? It's one of the reasons why he had to leave. Right, the Black Panther Party's paper. Some of us literally grew up on both of those newspapers. And I was given the honor and privilege of contributing to the second wave of the Black Panther Party newspaper. We had it out in the 90s for a few years under South Bukhari. And it was my favorite Cub experience out of all of the stuff I did, working under party elders. My favorite Cub experience. So, we have rich traditions, that we come from, that we, as we get older, we have to figure out how to pass these traditions down and this kind of commitment down to these next generations so they can take their rightful place and do what we need them to do. And so here you are with these amazing young folks. Let's bring them in and let's have this.
Yeah. So we're actually joined by a few of them. One is just getting off of a plane from Ghana, and the other one is on a train. So they're both stuck, but we should have three of them here with us. These are we're trying to develop a cadre of public speakers, just ordinary community members who are sort of engaged in being reflective and critical about the political context. We get to hear talking heads and people who are sort of, giving their opinions about a variety of things. We want to bring community members into that space and develop them as public speakers. And certainly this is in conjunction with Andy Richards, who is one of our advisory committee members who couldn't be here tonight. Yes. But so we've been building this, what we call a Gen Z platform. And it started inspired by one of the young people, actually one of the award-winning journalists who's stuck at work right now. She, Zoe Van Gelder, I think everyone knows her well, decided that we needed to build a platform to create a public speakers bureau in the space and in the round, so to speak. To hear voices that we don't often hear from, and voices that should claim power in the space. And so we launched this Gen Z Speakers Bureau, and we're having our third panel coming up on Sunday, and it's going to be on Black Liberation Media. Jared Ball, who is on I Mix What I Like and Black Liberation Media, will be the moderator. He has been the moderator for all of the Gen Z panels, and he will be again on this one, and we'll again have it on the Black Liberation Media platform this Sunday from 3 to 5. People should go to our website. We'll also drop it in the chat.
Yes.
You can sort of get to the link and show up. It's a 2-hour conversation where they're engaged with each other, talking about contemporary issues. This particular one, and they'll talk more about it, this particular one, they will reflect on the first 100 plus days of the Trump administration. We're doing it a little late. Why? Because they had finals and they were in school and they're traveling back. Yeah, exactly. And so, the administration is still 100 days plus. And so these young people, there are going to be 7 of them on a panel on Sunday. So I want to introduce them. I'll begin with Fatima Zani, who is actually a filmmaker. She was a member of our community journalism summer program last year, taught by Dr. Todd Stephen Burrows, and I'm sure he's listening and watching. She's here. We also featured her. We did a Q&A with her on her very first film that she just produced, and she can tell you a little bit about that film. That Fatima is just fantastic. And then we have Ishani Bakshi, who has been with us for about 2 years as a reporter. She's an award-winning reporter. She's just done a piece on, she'll tell you her latest piece, but she covers education, she's covered voting rights, she's covered femicide, rape, she's covered a variety of issues. And she's also, I mean, one of them, an international story. So she'll tell you a little bit more about herself and what she's covered. And I think Sadie, who should be on shortly, also will join. So Fatima, do you want to go first?
Yeah. Hi guys. It's really great to be here. Like Josie said, my name is Fatima. I'm a filmmaker. Currently, I'm working a lot in the documentary space with a director whose name is Jenny Schweitzerbau, and we're working on some pretty exciting stuff. Like the most recent thing being a documentary on a group of 80-year-old women who are going to the Senior Olympics this year for basketball, and this film is basically challenging stereotypes around ageism and stereotypes about women being in sports. And in addition, I also have my own clients in my own production company. And most recently, we did a short film. The short film was about a father and daughter in Aleppo, Syria. And the father basically makes a game out of the sound of bombs falling, so his daughter isn't afraid. And this story kind of came from a personal place because I myself am Syrian, and also, just out of the true and raw stories that are taking place and have taken place in Syria. So yeah, and my goal is to just continue building my production company and continue making great work in the film industry.
And so Zaid and Ed, she's barely she's barely legal to drink or vote. So when she speaks in that way, she's accomplished a lot. But she's a Gen Z and very much on the young side of the Gen Z. So
It's all right. It's all right.
Ishani.
Hey, Shani's been with us before, right, Ishani? Yeah.
She's been with us for 2 years. I mean, and let me just say, you can tell them where you are currently. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, nice. It's awesome to be back on. I know it's been so fun. Like every time I come on, it's always have great conversations with you guys. And so I'm currently a junior in high school, almost at the end, so basically a senior. And I've been with Public Square for the past 2 years. I've written a lot of interesting articles. My most recent article that Josie mentioned was actually on the termination. So there are these 6 Rutgers students who are on temporary visa, all Chinese or Indian. And very recently, their SEVIS accounts, which are basically their student in exchange of visitor information accounts, were terminated due to just clerical errors. So just a little error that someone made out there. And in turn, what happens is that when your SEVIS account, when you're on temporary visa, is terminated, you can lose your visa status, you can be denied re-entry into the US, and worst case, you can be deported. And on more short-term scale, this leads to complications with you getting hired or you maintaining your job. And this is a huge deal for these 6 students because they're all here trying to get education. And when you have these sort of legal errors that aren't seen with care, it can lead to a huge impact in their lives, both financially and in regards to their education, and also mentally. That's a lot of stress. And until the ACLU New Jersey took up the case, their SEVIS accounts were not going to be reinstated. So only because a large organization stood up for them did anything even happen. And otherwise, if the story was not picked up, these 6 students would have lost their past few years of education and their past few years of hard work, which is very tragic. And that was my most recent story. But as Julie said, I've covered a lot of the recent protests, from the hands-off protests, and I'm going to cover the No Kings protest soon, and just the general sentiment following the Trump's 100 days and how people in New Jersey are coming together to ensure democracy stays strong and robust in our state, even considering what's going on a federal level.
Nice.
Yeah. Shani and Fatima, Fatima is with us for the first time. Shani, can you remember what I said to you and your crew that when you were here the last time, by way of me introducing myself to you? You probably don't, but I'm going to say it again, all right? And it's something that I do in the streets periodically when I engaging young folks in the streets. Ed can remember when I ran a Panther formation in this area called the New Black Panther Party, and we periodically would shut the streets down, and that would later morph into something that became a much broader movement in Newark around community-based violence intervention. But then when we would do that, first thing I'd have to do is apologize to those young folks, because I never thought for all of my experience that this country would go back so far in its retrograde intentions and its backwards intentions. And for all of our commitment to try and prevent that, we came up short, and we are in this space, and it's a real space. But I want you to know that even though some of us have tried to push back the hand of reaction, and we would still do that. I think we owe it to your generation and the generation that's before you, that's a little older than you, that someone is honest with you about that, right? Because one of the things that we do in this work is that we cover people and big mistakes that they make and how they impact on all of our lives, particularly folks who are responsible for governing institutions, right? And that's how we hold them accountable, right? So being principled as journalists is something that's very important. So I just, as a veteran trying to share with you that principle, I want to share with you my apologies. I belong to the generation, the children of the 1960s, that instead of running towards taking our struggle to that next place, and some of us have tried to do that too, right? But some of us made the mistake of running to something that was brought into our community to destroy us. My generation was a different generation that was cracked up by crack, and the residual fallout from that is yet to be anywhere near properly amplified and documented and treated as it needs to be critically treated, and some of the weaknesses that have affected our capacity to fight back comes directly from mistakes that we unintentionally made, we naively made, that has a lot to say about our shortcomings as a generation of parents. It's being very plain, right? That really is partly responsible in a self-critical way about where we're here. So I just needed to do that for you, right? Because I think if we had been stronger and more clear and more protective of community space when that stuff started coming our way, we'd be in a different position. But so many of us were so badly affected by that. The setbacks are real. The setbacks are very real. And here we are. Women's rights came under vicious attack recently with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. We never thought something like that would happen, right? We should be talking about an equal rights amendment to the Constitution right behind that. We're nowhere near that right now, and all of these other things that you all are trying to make sense of in this first 100 days of this second redo or this second run of Mr. Trump. So I just wanted to give you that, because I think you deserve that as children and grandchildren of this tradition. And from my generation, I just wanted to make sure I did that. So having said that now, right, how are y'all looking at this moment? How are y'all navigating this space, right? Fatima, you mentioned the fact that your family's from Syria, right? Syria is one of those crossroads countries that always gets caught up in the violent crossroads of the violent machinations of the West, right? And it's going through a lot about the change of government, that all of that stuff, right? And right beneath that, of course, is this horrible genocide that we are being gaslighted to the world, that is the Gaza genocide, right? How are y'all beginning to make sense of that?
So, Fatima, do you want to go or can? Okay. So, for me, I think there's just so many different factors to look at. And I actually want to start with something you guys brought up at the very start with the Ras Baraka and the Congressman McIver case. And specifically, when I was looking into it, right, I recalled reading somewhere, and I looked more into this, that in 2021, New Jersey, like when Delaney Hall was getting reopened, one of the biggest controversies here in New Jersey was that in 2021, and New Jersey enacted a law, I think A5207, which prohibited both public and private entities from entering into new or renewed contracts with ICE for immigration detention. And then in 2023, a federal judge struck down that portion of the law, and it's still currently in controversy. And the main argument that New Jersey has in its favor when it comes to the fact that they believe they can control such the Delaney Hall and other detention centers is there's the anti-commanding doctrine, which basically set the precedent that states cannot be forced to enact federal policies, and states have the right to regulate their land use and health safety as long as it's not directly targeting a federal law. And that is the basis for why the New Jersey government is against Delaney Hall. But like just like the most recent controversy with the Ras Baraka and the Congresswoman, it seems like the law is not being interpreted for exactly what it is, but for in a way it can be politicized and weaponized. Specifically, I think just frankly the accusations they have on the Congresswoman based on her hitting a forearm or like holding people too tightly and writing it off as assault is frankly it's ludicrous, and it just shows that we're at a point where the separation of powers, which the government set up to be, is not what it was meant to be, and instead we have these different branches of government which are just functioning as tools for our two main political parties, and it's kind of just like an all-out battle to see whichever party can get more parts of the government to help with their agenda. And in this case, we see the Conservative Party is just weaponizing the justice system. And I think that's one of the main things that both in the Gen Z panel and we've just a lot of us have been thinking about recently is, of course, it's scary when you have someone who disagrees with you with your core beliefs in power, but it's even scarier when the kind of rules of the world, the things you thought that there are lines, certain lines you cannot cross, when those lines are being crossed, when the rule of law, the one that kind of made everyone feel safe and like, oh, no matter what, we can't break this, we can't break these rules, when that is being just so broken over and over again in such a clear way, and that they're not trying to hide it anymore. And that's the scariest part, just the amount of audacity and just the confidence they have in weaponizing the law and justice.
Fatima, what say you? And I don't know who's working the controls, Ed, but we've got somebody else in the backstage that needs to come forward. That's Sadie. Whoever's doing the controls can bring Sadie in. There we go. Okay. Go ahead, Fatima. Go ahead. Pick up where your colleague left off.
So, kind of just to follow up on that, Ishani, I think that was really beautifully said. I think, yes, I think we have a lot of different ways we can think about this, right? Like, we can look at what the government's doing, we can look at the world right now, and we can see it as scary, because from one perspective, it definitely is. But from another perspective, I think you have to think, like, if they are pushing and they have enough confidence to, break certain rules, or, they can be unjust or inhumane, then I think that, we also have the right to, push past the boundary and also speak our minds regardless of, what the government is saying we can or can't do. And that's kind of the beauty of the human spirit, is we can flip, within our capacity, right? Like, we're here in America, but we can flip what we're being told, and we can do things like this, like having these meetings, or doing doing things,
creating your own platforms, doing your own work, and telling your own story.
Exactly. And I think that's like one of the most powerful things that you can do is, work with people. And Syria, and we talk about Syria, and we can talk about Palestine, and we can talk about the Uyghur genocide, we can talk about all these things that are happening all over the world. And the fact is all of it's super unfortunate. There in Sudan, like there's resources like in these places, which is why these things are happening. But we just have it only means like we have the responsibility of doing everything in our power to support those people in every way we can, because these wars that are happening all over the place, I'm not a fortune teller, I don't know, but they're not going to end anytime soon because these places are so lucrative in resources. So we just have to keep fighting our fight and doing what we can.
Hi, everyone.
Do you want to bring Sadie
can you
in?
hear me?
Yeah. So let me introduce Sadie.
Hi, sorry.
Hi, Sadie. Sadie's somewhere in Florida. They were all sort of in transit today. Thank you, Sadie, for joining us. Sadie's freshman at Brown and will be joining our community journalism class this summer, the same one that Fatima did last year and that Ishani was also a part of, and she will be a part of it as well. So Sadie will be joining us, and so you'll hear more and see more of Sadie. Sadie, welcome, and tell them a little bit about you and your background and joining the Gen Z panel of speakers.
Hello, all. Can you hear me?
We hear you. Yes, we do. Mm-hmm.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, sorry, I'm currently in transit, and my camera's not working, but you will be seeing my face on Sunday. But yeah, a little bit. I attended Columbia. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. Go ahead, Sam.
Sorry. Yeah. I attended Columbia High School, where I became very involved in the activism scene there. I was part of Students for Justice. I led Students for Justice, which was kind of a multi-focused group, student activism. I led an intersectional feminist club and also participated. I interned for New Jersey Working Family Parties. And actually, I took AP African American Studies, where I met TJ Whitaker, who introduced me to Josie and Public Square Amplified. And so I've done a few of the panels now, and I will be joining again for the panel on Sunday. But kind of just going off of what Fatima was saying and what my other colleagues were saying, I think something during this like particularly tumultuous time that's helped me stay grounded is kind of decentering myself and realizing that although like this time seems very overwhelming and there's all these attacks on civil liberties, it's like not particularly exceptional. And there's this like rhetoric, oh, America's descent into fascism, when it's like the reality of it is like this is already a bit of a fascist country and we already have these systems in place. And like the reality is like even though Trump's making these attacks, making these moves, it's like the prison industrial complex and the military industrial complex have existed under all of our former presidents, our relationship with these fascist governments and etc. And so I think kind of taking away from activists from the past and realizing that like they've also had to go through these crazy struggles and fight for their own civil rights. I don't know, I think it can help us be slightly optimistic, because I know we can all agree, like in this scene especially, it's very easy to kind of dig yourself into a hole of like there's nothing I as an individual can do. And obviously I get the panels aren't super action based, but I do think especially with the like our younger generation, the focus is Generation Z, just having a space to communicate with people who are just as politically active and who hope for a better future is really remarkable, and it's definitely something I'm holding on to during this time.
I think you may have lost her.
No, I think, Zaid, were you saying something? Because you were on mute.
I'm sorry, I muted myself. I didn't realize it. No,
I
but
thought you were responding. Yes.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I apologize. Said I just wanted to share with you that I have a very cherished colleague and comrade who's a Brown alumni who recently brought the papers of Mumia Abu Jamal, one of my journalist inspirations, right, to Brown University, straight from Mumia's prison cell. And Brown made quite an exhibit, and putting that what could be exhibited of that collection of that imprisoned freedom fighter and journalist's work at that space, and she's should be someone you should be in contact with. It's maybe Josie, we need to facilitate that connection between Johanna Fernandez and Sadie and this and her crew.
Yeah, I think so.
That'd be really powerful, right? So I just wanted to share that. There's some interesting stuff happening in Brown, and when
No, that's
Johanna was there,
wonderful.
yeah, when Johanna was there, Johanna was not quiet. She was not a
Yes.
passive student.
I
She
think
raised a lot of hell when she was there,
for
and
all of
she
sorry.
an alum as a consequence. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah,
Right?
that's wonderful.
So
I
welcome to
didn't
the space. Go ahead. I'm
Thank
sorry.
you. Sorry, no. I didn't get to see them speak, but I do think for all of Brown's flaws, as any, elitist institutions have, and, kind of the ivory tower predicament, I do think that Brown does a good job of bringing a wide, diverse range of speakers and trying to make some sort of exhibit for them. And I do think a lot of that, though, is student run. And so I think these small student activist spaces are where a lot of kind of the progressive speakers come from and where a lot of the magic happens. So that's wonderful. And I'd love to get in contact with other Brown alum.
Yeah. As Sadie and I often go back and forth, let me just say that a lot of the radical sort of radicalism in the higher education space came out of City University, came out of UCLA, came out of community colleges, and we don't often think about the community college space and ways in which they've been sort of pushed further and further to the periphery. I mean, look at Newark, and we never sort of have opportunities to engage, though I think many of us try to with Essex County College, which is, it's a force of working class folks who are multi-generational, that come from different backgrounds, and I'm talking about from multiple countries represented at ECC. And, we're often trying to engage more with the students there and bring the students into our journalism space. So radicalism has come through not just the Ivy League, and it's interesting. And I think the Gen Z panel on Sunday will talk about ways in which, Harvard has now become sort of radical and revolutionary, which is fascinating. And so what we often talk about within Public Square is ways in which hegemony is able to co-opt radical conversations and co-opt sort of radical paths to liberation. And we're seeing that now. And so there are so many struggles going on, right? We're seeing it here in Newark, in New Jersey, in the multiple political campaigns, ways in which progressive ideas and have become viewed as radical, and ways in which those progressive ideas have become part of a path created to maintain empire and hegemony. And so these are, it's a time to sort of decenter, to underline something that Sadie said. It's a time to decenter sort of ideas around what is right and what is just, and to begin to unpack who we are as citizens and how we engage in liberation work at a very simple and sort of pedestrian sense, right? Where are the working class folks in the conversation? Where do they rest? Where do they rest in access to power? And as we build sort of hierarchies of human value and access to power, we further push the working class and poor people and immigrants to the periphery. So how are we changing that? And how are we creating new or holding on to those paths to access power, but also creating even more equitable paths to power? So that's a critical piece, I think. So I think they're going to touch on a bit of that as well.
Let me ask each of you this. This is one of the things that inspired my generation and the generation before me, unfortunately, and it's a big problem that's going the wrong way in this particular moment. Is this question of our communities and their relationship to racialized policing? How racialized policing has gone backwards and it continues to go backwards in this country. We did, this is 5 years since George Floyd, for example, right? We had our incredible George Floyd summer of protests just a little while ago in the aftermath of his killing, right? But more folks have been killed by the police since George Floyd. Instead of that, those numbers going down and real accountable measures being put in place to change the character of policing in this country. How are you guys handling that? How does that inform what you do and inform your own vision and inform your own forward motion?
So I think with the whole like the racial policing, right? It's like most of the issues based in identity in America have gotten worse, and that is by design. It's the high crime rates in African American neighborhoods was by design under LBJ, and it started then with the war on drugs, which was
LBJ. You know about LBJ? If everybody doesn't, that's Lyndon Baines Johnson, one of the most dangerous liberals of the 20th century, who gave us a hell of a war that was the Vietnam War. And he was quite a dude. I appreciate that analysis. Keep coming. I want to hear this.
so. I mean, I'm not learning too much, but it was LBJ with his on his front. He wanted to help the African American community, but in reality, he was just um, hurting everyone. And it was on purpose. It was very much planned. It was very much because there was a strong anti-war sentiment that in African American communities were very strong and they were very united, and that was a threat to the bigger efforts at war. And so since then, we've had just drugs and various different sorts of like social epidemics being funneled into Black communities by the government realistically, and with that came racialized policing, and they used their own made social epidemics to justify this trend in racialized policing, saying it was fair just because of problems that they created to justify this. And then we had the whole George Floyd case with the George Floyd case in 2020. And at that point, we saw BLM, we saw huge protests, we saw what felt like to a lot like social change. But in reality, I think while there was increase in public awareness of it, maybe people who are not part of the African community or not minorities became more aware of it at the point. It did not spark as much systemic change as it was hoped. It sparked conversation, and while conversation is important, conversation is not making actual change. And I think it became the big protest at a point became and like sensationalizing what was happening in these big cities with like fires and like all these huge actions became a distraction almost, and the actual action that's supposed to be taken by policymakers just shifted to the back. And I think the actual action that's supposed to be taken by police and by these institutions were just took a backseat. And obviously, clearly, when there isn't change, there isn't actual systemic change. The problem continues to snowball over generations, which is what we're seeing right now, and it's going to get worse. There's no one trying to advocate for. There's no group that's actually tackling this issue, tackling this problem and I don't know if I honestly don't know if it's feasible to tackle a huge problem. I think that's systemic. I have some pessimism about if that's even feasible in the next 10 years in America, considering everything. And it's very unfortunate. And this extends from just the racialized police issue to various other issues affecting minorities. And even with the immigration issue, it's a very similar trend of the government creates its own social epidemics and then uses it to justify, quite frankly, human right violations. And it's just disgusting. And it's sadly the state of what we're in right now.
It's incredible. I appreciate that analysis a lot. I grew up growing up in the 60s when we watched popular media and television. The bad guys wore masks and the good guys didn't, right? And now we are at a time when policing is at its as supposed to be its most advanced levels. You got, oh my God, you got these masked men running in our community, scaring the hell out of people and locking people up in broad daylight just because they look like they do not belong. Fatima, what say you about this notion of?
Well, before that, I think Sadie is trying to get back in.
Okay,
Yeah.
hope
Mhm.
she can. Yeah, I understand
Yeah.
that she's traveling. I hope she can. It's, all of, I'm loving your voices. I'm really glad to have you back. Right? I don't know much Sadie heard. So Fatima, why don't you go and then we'll bring Sadie up to speed.
So I guess my perspective on it is I don't necessarily think that policing is a bad thing, but I do think that it's bad when it's used in a bad way, I guess, like very simply put. I think when it's for the people and for the protection of the community, it looks completely different. And currently, I think as of recent, the priorities that the police have and the way that they're taught is, they're focusing on the wrong things. So that's, I think that's my perspective on it. It's very, very simply put. Yeah, that's my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna disagree with Fatima a bit there. I do think that, how the police are outlined to protect against crime, and that's a very like kind of appealing selling point. But I think the foundations of our modern policing system emerging during Reconstruction and after slavery, I just don't think there's really a way for the police to be like an ethical or moral institution. And I do think kind of when Ishani was talking about these like man-made like epidemics, almost government-made epidemics, I think, the police have been bolstered a lot by the various war on drugs. We can go to the 80s and talk about crack and talk about how the police, gained funding from that and gained notoriety and authority. When, most people have an understanding that drug wars can be solved with, funding to social services instead of increased militarization. And then now we see with the very much American-made Mexican-American drug war, the same thing happening where the police have now been militarized to the point where they're almost indistinguishable from the military. And then that intersects with immigration as well. And we see these, police who are supposed to be, hypothetically, preventing the flow of drugs from coming into this country. We see them kind of turned also into the people keeping immigrants out, and people trying to come into this country, which is built on immigration. And so I think with this new Trump presidency, also in terms of like culture and like, Trump preaches about respect for authority and emboldens people to be outwardly bigoted. And so I think policing has, gained some momentum from that. And I think we see that with police brutality, which of course existed under every president. But I think in particular, kind of after the ebb and flow of the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020, which, is very much a movement that should have lasted, but kind of in the public sphere, it was viewed as this like performative, like we're going to post black squares to show our solidarity with Black people, and then yet still kind of not calling for any sort of police reform, or even, if we talk about abolition and more radical takes on policing. And I feel like I saw even my own peers, talking from generational experience, becoming somewhat involved and maybe attending a protest or posting about police brutality on their social medias, and then kind of the fall off of that, and to the point that it was like very performative. And now I think for a lot of people, policing doesn't seem to be the number one issue to them, just because the news is filled with stories of, international wars and genocides, and people are more focused on the direct attacks on civil liberties. But I think if you look at it, and if you look at people protesting for anything, it's like at the center of that are police, and they are like squashing the resistance. And, behind any like picket line or behind the other side of any protest are police with military grade riot gear. And we're supposed to be a country where we have the freedom to protect ourselves and to protest, and yet people are faced with having to risk their lives or having to be put on the Canary Project or face police brutality. So I think that's kind of where modern policing stands.
I have a little bit of a rebuttal to that, because I think that policing, like, I get what you're saying, but that's only because they're controlled by, a higher up, and they're taught, like, okay, this is what you need to do, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. But if the police were more on the side of the people, and they followed the foundational system of, okay, like, I'm supposed to protect the people, it would look completely different. Because, like, policing, like the kind of policing you're talking about, it's not just in America, that's everywhere. Like, I know in Syria, like, the government can literally just tell the police, like, go, like, take this man out of, this is before, now, like, it's a little different, but you can be like, they could tell the police to go take a man, like, who literally did nothing, out of out of his shop, and, like, just throw him in jail, and he could get sentenced for nothing but be in jail for like 30 or 40 years. If it was a little different and the police actually could, say, like, no, like, I'm protecting this person, or, like, I will not let you, interfere with this it would be complete, it's protection, and that's what it's supposed to be. So I just wanted to rebuttal on that a little bit.
This hour is moving fast, moving too fast.
I
And
know it's too fast. And
yeah, I'm glad
me
you're getting
say-
2 hours on Sunday.
Yeah, I know.
Let me ask each of you this, because this is important, because we ask difficult questions. We're talking about hard things. I got to ask you what inspires you, right? What inspires you to want to go forward in this field, given all of this morass of difficulties, repression, and racism and sexism? What inspires you to go forward in spite of what you're seeing right now?
Personally, for me, I think while a lot of the current news is demoralizing, I think we're at this very hopeful time almost where there's so much information is available. There's so much independent media, like Public Square, like all politics are local, where for the first time, the public source of information is not this carefully curated big media picture of events, which is oftentimes very influenced by government. Instead, people are getting more awakened to the real stories and to local stories and information that's not just like watered down propaganda. It's people are people eyes are more open, and that's hopeful. That's one of the best things that come out of such a digital age, that comes out of such a widely connected world now. And with that, we're having this rise of so many new protests, so many new coalitions forming. With, like, I was recently looking into the Million Voter Project in New Jersey, which is an effort to get
Trying to get them on this week, and we're trying to get them on.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're just like this like group of coalitions from like religious groups, like to the Latino Action Network, to like various different organizations that have, on paper, you would think have nothing to do with each other, but then they come together for a common goal. And I think more and more of that's happening now that we realize that there's no point in staying in our own camps. It's better to unite for a larger goal, which is democracy, which is protecting our human rights. I think that's what gives me hope, because yes, while there evil actors having power, there's also unity, and there's also spread of knowledge.
Fatima, lady, what say y'all? What inspires y'all? What keeps you going?
I think, it's a lot of things, because if you look at the past, there are people who have gone through so much, and there's people who are currently going through so much. And I feel that, here, I'm safe, and I'm provided for, and I have what I need. I have my mind, I have my mouth, my ears, like, I have everything I need to make a difference and in this world. And even though that difference might be small, it's still something. And I want to be able to know that, when I'm no longer here on this earth, like, I did everything that I could to speak for the truth, whether people like it or not. Um, and 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 people's hope through their struggle is honestly really what inspires me, because you know, you can be on a beach with bombs going around you, but somehow you still find hope. And if people can do that, then I I can do so much, too. So
Mm-hmm. 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 Very good. Sadie was saying.
Sadie? Oh, she's so maybe she
Oh, she
popped
fell
off.
back down.
So just want to say, I know we have to get off, and so thank you so much for giving us so much time and giving us this platform. The reason that we are trying to invest in young people being at the center of conversations is because as more and more, and we see it happening, as adults and heads of institutions become silent and acquiesce their human rights and their civil liberties, and as people hide, and particularly adults and heads of institutions, once again, there are young people who are being courageous and bold and speaking and fighting against the silencing, fighting against their silencing. So I'm so proud to be associated with the young people who show up on the Gen Z panel, and also to the young people who show up to report our stories. I'd love everyone to join Public Square, sign on for our newsletter, read our stories, and share the stories of the young people who are writing and thinking and carving a new path and holding on more than ever for the struggle for liberation. So,
And,
thanks.
before we go, one of our co-hosts has joined. Donna K. Williams, our councilwoman at large. We still call her that, even though she's not in office right now, right? Donna, why don't you, while as these young folks go out, why don't you give them our ritual question?
Hi, Fatima and Ishani. Did I pronounce it right? Ishani, correct. Hi, pleasure. Thank you for being a part of our show. Well, this is a hip hop political show. So thank you for sharing your experiences with us. And Josie, thank you for bringing these young people to our platform. Just makes me feel like I'm their age again. So thank you very much, Josie. Um, this is a hip hop political show. So when you're doing the word Fatima and Shani that you do, what hip hop artist, individual, or group do you listen to inspire you to go out and do the work that you do? Or who do you listen to?
Kendrick Lamar, and
Oh,
I like
yeah.
Cassie. Um, I love hip hop. I really like Easy. I don't know. I like Eminem. I'm originally from Detroit, so
Okay.
um,
Repping Eminem. I like Eminem too.
yeah. Uh, so many. There's so many good ones. It's kind of hard to choose.
I think Eminem just beat out Kendrick for, did I just read? Eminem just beat Kendrick out for on an award recently. So Eminem still
Oh,
holding
really?
steady.
For his
Yeah.
recent
And
out,
it's
that's kind of surprising. Kendrick has been dropping bars recently. Eminem beat Kendrick. Eminem's old stuff is really. I don't mean to blast Eminem, but his old stuff is really good. But Kendrick came out with some crazy albums.
yeah, that everybody's analyzing and looking at, yes, and having us bring conversations to the table. Not, yeah, so it's good. But they're all a team, so it's all good. And Shani, who you listening to?
For me, I would also have to say Kendrick. I think that's like everyone's answer. So I was trying to think of something more creative in my head. But yeah, no, that's probably the one that's most on my playlist. I don't have a very deep reason for it. I just like his songs a lot. They're good.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's probably what I'm listening to.
Did
So as
y'all
we
like the
go out,
Luther?
remind
All
us.
right, what? Zaire,
Go. I'm
you
sorry.
want to say?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, did y'all like Luther, his remake of Luther? I don't know if you know it was a remake because generationally we know it's a remake.
I really
Did you?
liked it. I like Luther. I was just gonna say that's like the one I was listening to, like the last song of his. So I like the Luther
Yeah.
lyrics are very good.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you, and come back and don't. You realize you don't have to be asked. If you have some news that you think we should know, please reach out. put you on, okay?
Thank you.
Josie, remind everybody what time they're going to be
Sure.
on the air with Jared.
So Sunday, June 2nd, beginning at 3, ending at 5. We'll have the Gen Z panel members speaking and critiquing the first 100 plus days of the current administration. So please show up for them, support them, and show up for Public Square. Oh, hello. And we were just on with Mr. Hamm last night. So thank you so much. Yeah.
When is your show going to debut, and what's the name of your show?
Oh, I'll come back on, and it's going to be an extension of Public Square. So,
Okay.
and you're going to hear. I mean, these young people are going to have space on it. So,
Awesome.
when we're ready to do it, we'll definitely come on and talk more
Yeah,
about it.
you-
And I
you-
want to come back. I told
Yes, okay.
Jonathan I want to come back and I want to talk about funding of local news and building a black press and having people show up to support public news. Okay.
Josie,
All right.
I have it. I'll
Yeah.
call you, but I do want to say before we leave, I just read a quote that the Pope had put out on May 15th, Pope Leo, and this administration has kind of put a negative turn on the word woke. The Pope came back and put a positive spin on the word woke. So when you're critiquing it, it was like, look who came to stand up against this, against this negative critique. It was Pope Leo from Chicago that came and said. So just think about that.
Yeah, and we can talk more about this. When we look to Harvard and we look to the Vatican to lead us to revolution, it is of great concern to me. And always, I want to come back and talk about revolution and liberation. Yes. Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Peace.
Bye.
Good to have y'all. Good to have
Thank you.
Right? Looking forward to having you back. Right.
Hey, Chairman. Jason C. Grove is on time. Look at him.
Everybody
Jason,
froze.
Chairman, is here.
Boy.
Do I go ahead in the back?
How you doing,
Go ahead in
Chair?
the back. Wait. Go ahead, Jason. Go ahead.
No, good evening to everyone.
Good evening. Were you saying, oh boy, Chairman? That was you breathing? Okay. Chairman, we're here and we'll be joined by Pastor Boyer. We'll be talking about as June 10th, we get closer to the primary. I think that's what he was saying, oh boy, he was going into a dead zone because you could see him spinning. But Jason, I'm going to let you tell in relation to the Mayor Baraka for Governor campaign. You are the director of operations in the Oranges area, and we just want to know how people can participate up until June 10th or after if they want to help Mayor Baraka during his race.
So good evening, everyone. My name is Jason Grove. I am the campaign coordinator for Orange for Ras Baraka for governor. And, we have, under 2 weeks for us to get out the vote and support Ras Baraka for governor. For those that are interested in getting involved, I can put my contact information and a good telephone number and email in the chat function so folks can get involved, and you can find me on all social media platforms, or just reach out. I'm happy to answer any questions. The campaign is in full swing and full motion. A lot of the work that we do right now, for those of you that have never been involved in campaigns either at the local municipal level, at the state level, is very similar. Knocking on doors, engaging our family and friends and the people that we know, and asking for their support for the candidate that we're endorsing. And more importantly, just telling them why, providing some education on platform that Mayor Baraka has, the work that he's done, and how people like yourselves who are interested in getting involved civically and locally can get involved. And there's a lot of room for support if you want to get involved. We're in Orange. We have people or coordinators that are all over Essex County or all over the state, wherever you reside. I'm happy to connect you to those folks. So if you want to come to a meeting, I'm happy to share that information as well about how you can support leading up to June 10th. So I hope that you'll consider voting for Ras Baraka for governor. Even if not, it's just most important that you just get out and exercise your right to vote and participate in democracy and to make a better New Jersey. So thank you for having me.
You're not finished, Jason. A couple more questions. Tell me why.
Tell
tell
the
me.
audience.
Tell the audience, right? Tell myself and the audience, and Jackie and Chairman Hamm, why Ras Baraka for governor, and if anybody's having questions, you've been doing a tremendous social media platform, responding to people. So just kind of hit people why he should be the choice for our next governor of New Jersey.
Man, that is a hard one. No. So, I think the mayor is a proven leader. I think if you get the work that's done um, across the city of Newark and how he just really improved the condition of the city for a lot of folks, reduction of crime, the lowest it's been since I've lived in the city. The work that he did with the lead service lines, how he really engaged like MW, um, and really just changing the energy of the city. Most recently, I think one of the reasons why I'm voting for him is because I think, he's just a great person, but what he's done for the unhoused or individuals without addresses and the work that he continues to do around just creating a safe space for people who have barriers and obstacles to employment, barriers and obstacles to like housing consistency, like all of those things. Um, I'm still learning what it means to be progressives, but the progressives say that Mayor Baraka is a really good progressive. I think that support, the mayor. He, since I met him, I believe in 2010, I would say that he's been a champion for social change and social justice. I know his family has a strong just history and culture of advocating for people and moving forward. Really, this idea of self-determination and really just being creative and taking our legacy and path forward in our own hands. And I think that he'll bring that same energy, same history, same culture. More importantly, just policy decision making to the state level. And I think that's something that everyone can agree with. Like you always say, there's some things that we can struggle around, but there's some things that I think we all unite around. And I think like a cleaner, a safer, more economically diverse community is best for New Jersey now. I think that those are some of the key reasons why I think people should vote for him. The groups who advocate for working families, the groups who advocate for middle class people. Those are the individuals who have the Rutgers, AFT, 32BJ, and the Working Family
What,
Party.
Jason, is he breaking up for everybody, or am I just hearing breaking up?
A little bit, he could be a little clearer, but it's he's getting through, but it's not 100%.
Is it? Do I need to be louder?
That's a little
Yeah,
better.
that's
a little better.
Oh yeah.
better, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's the way I had the phone position. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
That's better.
I'll just hold it. Does that a little bit better?
That's better,
That's
son. Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, sorry about it. Yeah, the way I had the phone position. I'm not gonna repeat all of that, but I think his emphasis on crime, his social justice advocate, but just his leadership in the city and just really improving the condition for the individuals in the city, right? And I think that any elected official, you want to see a record of actually doing something, and I think people should vote for the mayor because he has a record of doing something. He has a record of being collaborative and, bringing people to the label up to the table that, think like them, who agree like him, and also individuals that don't, and really uh, connecting around issues and putting policy positions together to kind of create an outcome that creates opportunities for people in the city and also changes the conditions of the city. If you look around Newark, the largest city, you know, um, it's different. It looks different, it feels different, it tastes different. Things are getting better, and I think that um, the city has gotten better, and we've gotten better because the city has gotten better. And I think I attribute that to the leadership. Is the city perfect? Absolutely not. No municipality is, no city is perfect. But I think if there was a person who, if just on record, right, just on the success of what they've done and what they've accomplished, I think Ras Baraka deserves to be governor of the great state of New Jersey.
Let me ask you something, Jason, because what you're doing is you got a tough job.
Yeah.
As good as even though you've got a very good candidate,
Yep.
got a tough job, and one of the things that we struggle with, those especially those of you who are in the Democratic Party, right, struggle with is that for all of the things that you laid out, all
Yeah.
of the dimensions of the value and the high profile dimensions of his candidacy, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that folks your age and down struggle with is how folks like that who are progressives get treated by their own party, right? A lot of folks are just confounded that not only in Essex County, but that there's a tendency from the leadership of the Democratic Party to push for anybody but Mayor Baraka, right? How do you deal with that kind of energy, right? That's got to be something that you have to confront when you're in the field, pushing the campaign, and in terms of your own morale, right? Because we
Yeah.
always ask this question: how come certain folks who are conscious don't vote? This is a part of that conversation.
Well, for me, it's a very simple answer. Just invite them to the table. Invite them to the discussion. Create an opportunity for them to engage and let them make the choice. There are what 11 candidates in the field right now on both sides. Um, just compare apples to apples. There are people who are not interested. That level of voter. Um, Apathy, right? That level of engagement. We really want to give people an opportunity to be educated about the work, man. What it means to be a Democrat, what it means to be a progressive, what it means to be an independent. Just educate people and bring them to the table and talk to them, find out what matters to them, find out what their values are. That's how you really engage them. Not everybody's going to vote, for the mayor. Um, Again, I know it's a tough job, for him and just all of us, trying to um, push folks away from this Trumpism and this more conservative crazy stuff. But I think we still have to engage people the same way that um, community groups do. Just talk to them about what it means to vote, what it means to be engaged, and just look for the people that are going to go with us. And really find out what matters to people and talk to them and speak to that.
Okay, Jason, I know we had two more questions. This is Chairman Hamm and Pastor Boyer's pretty much forum to talk about both Mayor Baraka. And you're here in the beginning, Chairman and Pastor Jason told he's over the city of Orange, Director of Campaigns. He's going to leave his information in the chat if people want to get engaged uh, up until the primary day and then up until November. So he'll leave his information. We'll have it in the chat, and then I'll have the last questions. So, Chairman, do you have a question for Jason?
Well, let me say I'm glad to see my brother.
Yeah,
Haven't seen him in a while, and
yeah,
I'm glad to see how he's developing. I've been watching Jason for what, at least a decade, Jason, maybe
Well
yes,
said.
more.
sir.
Well said.
Yes, sir.
I've
Mhm.
been watching you and seeing you grow and develop and continue to move upwards. And I wish you continued success in all of your endeavors. Um, we only have about roughly 2 weeks until the New Jersey Democratic primary.
Yeah.
What should voters do, Jason, between now and the 10th? What do you see? What do voters have to do to ensure the victory of Mayor Ras Baraka?
Call your cousin, call your friends, talk to your people at work, whoever you feel comfortable with. Talk to your neighbors, the people that you worship with, whatever your house of worship is, the people in the coffee shops, the people where you get your hair done, where you get pick up your shoes from. You know, real engagement. You know, Facebook and Instagram and the social space and the virtual space is cool, but there's nothing like getting out there. As my late uncle Arthur Wright would say, you gotta get out there and press some flesh, talk to people, engage people. Um, you know, tell them who Ras Baraka is. You know, connect them to myself, connect them to the campaign. You know, bring them to a meeting. You know, if you don't know who you're interested in voting for, go to Ras Baraka for governor. Do a Google search. You know, look at all of these candidates. Look at what it means. You know, what a governorship of any of these other folks would look like, you know, and look inwardly and say who would best benefit you. And if that is Ras Baraka, contact myself, contact the campaign. If you're interested in being a door knocker, a canvasser, a phone banker, or heck, you just want to stand around and hold a sign, getting in contact with this. But I think we all have to come out to vote. From my seat, if people who really want change, who really have been affected by the different policy changes and happenings from the administration and how that's filtering down to the local level. Like if those people come out and vote, I think that we win. You know, I think that to get Ras Baraka in office, you know, we can't sit down. We have to go outside. We have to be loud and proud. And we have to let people know that there's an opportunity to really change the course and join the fight. Because once I believe he becomes governor, you know, that's when the real work begins. That's when the fight begins. So we need people that are going to commit to volunteering, commit to engaging in a way, commit to helping people, commit to continuing to, as the mayor would say, moving the city forward. Get involved in your local church, get involved in your local community-based organization, like all of those things. I think that's how we get the mayor elected. Also, uh, donate $1 or $2 if you can. Like, campaigns cost money. That's the real nature of politics. $5, $10, whatever you have, send a plate around, at your next gathering at your house. To your point, we have 14 days. And so that's more than enough time for us to make a dent in any needs that the campaign has and share that information. All of that information can be found on RasForGovernor.com. And I truly believe if we share that with our friends and our families, we'll be good. Obama did it in 2008 with these little small groups. I think they called it like this snowflake model, where they just went to little groups of 5, little groups of 10, and they donated and they organized and they talked and they connected and they created this little network of people who really wanted change, and that's how he was successful. And I think that is an amazing opportunity for us here in New Jersey.
And is it
Well
too?
said,
Can
son.
people
Well
still get
said.
signs?
I'm sorry, I didn't say that again.
Can people still get signs?
Man, them signs are
Can
going like hotcakes. I can't promise you. I can't. Those signs is
That
just going.
sounds like a good problem.
those,
okay, that's
those
nice.
signs are going like hotcakes. Listen, talk to me offline. I'll see if I can get you one. But no,
All
if you
right,
come
I
to
need to.
if you come to Inner City Cafe, um, and just leave a note there, that is at 59 South Essex in Orange. I'll make sure you get one. I believe we have a few there. I keep a couple in my
Okay,
trunk as
okay.
well. So if you want to connect with me, I can get you a sign. But anyone that wants a sign, please connect with me, and I'll make sure that you get one. But they definitely moving like hotcakes.
And that's good. I
Yes,
drive through
sir.
the streets and I see more signs. Pastor Boyer,
Yeah.
do you have a question for Jason?
Yeah, Jason. Well, thank you for all you do and all your work on this historic campaign. Can you elaborate from your perspective for Black folks?
Can you repeat your
Who
question again? Start over,
I,
Pastor Boyer, because it clicked on. Just kind of start over.
okay. All right, but yeah, that's because I talk slow. It takes me a while.
That's that oratorial windup.
Yeah, it takes a while for the gears to move. Uh, for black folks out here that are on the fence or that aren't paying attention, or even those that are paying attention and are looking at some of these other candidates, can you break down just in the simplest terms the difference between a Ras Baraka and all these other candidates when it comes down to black people, just straight up?
Well, I'm a board member for the Urban League of Essex County,
Yes, you are.
and I'm an urban leaguer and social justice advocate, and I have been since I learned what the words mean. And I think if I put my urban league hat on, I would say that it comes down to economics. And I'm going to probably quote this wrong, but I believe the state did a disparity study about how it engages and allows African American businesses to participate in the state. I believe the county and the state did it. And the numbers weren't too good. And in the simplest terms, Rev, um, for African American people, our wealth, as the mayor would say, is not in our paycheck. It's in the assets that we create. It's in the homes and the businesses that, we create, and access to capital and opportunities. And just in the basic terms, the difference between Ras Baraka and others is that I think that Ras Baraka has a history and track record of creating opportunities for people who no one else has been able to create an opportunity for with the same level of power and influence. And so if you look at these other folks that have been mayors, if you look at these other folks that have been elected officials who have been uh, at the federal level, at the state level, wherever they've been, Ras Baraka has created opportunities, economic opportunities for black and brown people here in the city of Newark. And the state has failed miserably creating contract and procurement opportunities for people in the state that black and brown people in the state of New Jersey. And I think that um, Ras Baraka becoming governor is a great wealth opportunity for people who are able to take advantage of it. Uh, I think he'll create opportunities for small businesses who are either underserved or unrecognized. I think he'll work with uh, the smart people at the chambers of commerce and all those people to really get the message out about how to do business with the state, which creates job opportunities, which creates millionaires and billionaires for billionaire opportunities for small businesses, whether it be contracts or just exposure. In the simplest sandbox level form, Ras Baraka is good for business. Period.
Mm, mm, mm.
Okay, I know we respect
There's
time
a
and
question.
we know we kept you a little bit over. This is a hip hop political show. And we've had a discussion, but we want to know what hip hop artist, individual or group, do you listen to when you have to go do those Monday meetings, Saturday meetings at the cafe, when you want to inspire people to get out and do this GOTV work? Who are you listening to?
Man. Sheesh. When I want to get in the zone, when I'm ready to go, when I'm popping something right in the car, man, it's probably a mix between Jay-Z, Young Jeezy. Jay-Z and Young Jeezy, and I'll tell you why. I love a street hustler story. I grew up in the North Ward of Newark on 6th Ave, between 6th Street, but 6th Ave, 6, and there was a lot of hustlers there, right? And so the hustlers were always the cool guys who wanted us to stay in school, who wanted us to be better than they were, right? And they talked to us like that. They said, "Listen, we're doing street things, but you don't need to do this." Um, and so um, I always like to hear the hustlers talk about how they made it through their struggle. I always like to hear the hustlers talk about how they became businessmen, how they started out in humble beginnings, and how they made it and were able to change the lives of themselves and for their families as well. So When I want to get in the zone, probably Jay-Z and Young Jeezy.
Well, thank you. And do you want us? We put the campaign information in the. We have that, and we'll put it on the banner. But do you want us to put a phone number for you, or just a campaign
Yeah.
website?
I have a Google number that I give out. It's 973 869 9169. You can call or text this number. You know, the little Google lady is gonna talk. If I don't answer, just send a text message and it'll come directly to my phone. You can share that far and wide with anybody.
Okay, I didn't know she got a tall Google lady.
You
Just kidding. All right.
know, the Google
Okay,
lady will come through.
okay, we'll call and also Pastor Boyer, Chairman Hamm, y'all need to reach out to Jason. You can do that as well. Thank you,
Yeah.
Jason. Any last words for you?
June 10th, vote Ras Baraka for governor. It's a pleasure to see some of the people who I think are just social justice icons and titans, man. You know, I owe where I'm at today to this black woman, Donna Williams. You know, when I was in grad school, I came back to New Jersey, and I think we were at CBC, and this woman created an opportunity for me to manage her campaigns for both her re-elections, and we were successful. And through that opportunity, I was able to parlay it and just kind of leverage it to, you know, meet a lot of different people in a lot of different spaces. And I got to tell you, I would not be where I am today, personally and professionally, if it was not for Donna K. Williams. And wherever I go, I always say that, whether it's in the boardrooms of the agency that I work for, or you know the people locally that know my story. You know, it was Donna Williams that opened up an opportunity for me to be a campaign manager and really get engaged in
That's right.
civics and really talk to me about her tagline back then was efficient and effective government. It was Donna Williams that brought me to my first pop meeting at the basement of some church. You know what I mean? It was Donna Williams who introduced me to all of these people. So, you know, if you see me in the street acting crazy, just remember, you know,
Blame it on Donna.
blame it on Donna. You know, it was
Well,
Donna
tell
that took
Donna.
yeah, right, tell me, right? It was Donna that, you know, that really, you know, taught me what it means to be a public servant. So man, I just want to say thank you. And, you know, publicly, I don't think I've ever done it publicly, maybe on, you know, when I was talking too much somewhere, but I just want to say on this platform, just like thank you so much for always having my back. And you know, I'm hope that I'm paying it forward. I ain't got a lot of money, but I can pay it forward in, you know, how I show up in these spaces.
So
That's
thank
beautiful.
you.
Son. That's beautiful,
Yeah.
And
Jason.
my mascara
Yeah.
on, so that's enough. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Thank
All right.
you.
Y'all have a good
All
night.
right.
All right. Thank
All
you,
right. See
Jason.
you in the
No problem.
streets.
See you.
You got some love there, Donna.
Yeah, well,
Some seeds have blossomed.
That's the greatest honor. You're doing the work, and it shows back up.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Blessing.
ma'am. So to reintroduce this segment, this will be part 2 of a 3-part conversation, an ongoing conversation about the gubernatorial race here in New Jersey as we get ready for the June 10th primaries. And we're glad to have Reverend Charles Boyer back and Lawrence Hamm back to add their analysis and their insights and things that we should be concerned about in order to try and move forward through this moment. So, gentlemen, welcome back because we didn't get a chance to officially welcome you back into the space. Welcome back. There's always stuff happening. What are your opening thoughts about about what you heard from this young man who just came and shared space with us? Right. I was appreciative of his answer to that last question. That was a pleasant surprise. Folks often lean on other things when they have that one liner about why Raz. What are your thoughts? Where we at now? We're winding down. Got less than 2 weeks to go. What should we be talking about? We got to talk about souls to the polls, Reverend Boy. Got to talk about some of that, right? I just want to put a pin in that, right? But what say y'all?
I always yield to the chairman.
No, not today. Not today. The only thing I'm gonna say right now is that we ain't got to wind down. We got to wind up for the last 2 weeks. There ain't no winding down now. This is like the last lap of a 2-mile race. You better dig
All
deep
right.
and go down and pour it on. Go ahead, Reverend. Hey, Rev,
Go ahead.
I was in your town yesterday.
Oh,
There was a fathers rally, a black fathers rally in
okay.
front of the State House. And I
Really?
was there with those brothers yesterday. And I'm down in your region. I'm not in your town today, but I'm down here. I was in Barrington,
Mm.
in Camden County, and I'm here on the turnpike, still probably down around exit 4 on the turnpike. But yeah, I was in your town and I thought about you. I was hoping I was going to run into you. Ran into Reverend Armstrong down there,
Yeah.
and a couple other bishops and reverends were down there too. So go ahead, Rev. Let's hear what you say. Hey, Rev, I'm gonna give you something to light up with. Jason just said that Mayor Baraka will give us more business opportunities. And he said that the state of New Jersey has failed. These are Jason's words.
Right.
He said the state of New Jersey
Mhm.
has failed miserably to give opportunities to black businesses. How does that square with the fact that for the last 8 years, the governor of the state has not been a Republican, he's been a Democrat?
He's
So
a progressive too. Let's say
kick it
that.
off with that, Reverend. Kick it off with that.
And let me jump in there before you. As a former councilwoman, I know I wrote the legislation in Orange for minority businesses, and I got my cue from Councilwoman. I just lost it, from East Orange. That's why she athlete. I could see Carol, Councilwoman Carol, and she taught me that of all these contracts that go out, first of all, they don't go to minorities, they don't go to women, and they don't go to, of course, people of color. So you write up the minority contracts. It's no different than what was done in Atlanta when Mayor was building the airport and everything. But they still find ways. I could tell you, I've sat and meet so many meetings where these contracts are not being awarded, and they're making it hard for and mostly the small businesses that are right in the community. But Mayor Baraka has kind of carved out a space and created, if you will, workshops and things of that to help these businesses get more in the city of Newark. So that's all. That's great.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, because that's exactly I wanted to tap into exactly that, what Jason was talking about in terms of the economics. And I think he shed some light for me in a different way, because I think he answered that question spot on, which is the very reason white progressives don't want him to ever become the governor. White progressives, for the most part, love to window dress justice and like to tinker around the edges and deal with symptoms and never get to the roots. Knowing whether it's crime, this, that, the other, whatever, incarceration, justice system, you name it. For the most part, white progressives like to deal with the symptoms and never do what's necessary to get at the root issues. The root issues for Black folks, besides obviously the trauma of everything we've been through, is economics. I don't care what's going on in any given place where there's a majority Black population, and majority Black population throughout this state are disproportionately in concentrated poverty. So all of the other things that we face are dealing with that. Just like I say all the time, the safest and least policed neighborhoods in New Jersey are predominantly white and rich, because they have everything they need. You don't fight each other if you're not hungry. You don't smother each other if you're not pressed for space. And so we know what's going on. And so this absurdity which it seems absurd, but it's really very calculated, because I just see consistently that at the end of the day, his white progressive challengers and opponents, as well as what has ultimately been the status quo, is not really about getting to the thing. That's why it could take so long for the disparity study to get done. That disparity study could have got done a long time ago. It's about 7 years too late just within this administration. That's why things like the segregation lawsuit is held up by a progressive administration. That we see these things consistent. That's why amongst progressives, they would never want to do anything near a reparations, anything. A task force is milquetoast. But that's too much, because anything that even looks at the actual root causes and what it's going to take to resolve the issue, that undermines the racist capitalist system in which we have, which benefits and profits off of the misery of Black people. So if you get somebody in there that actually knows and understands that and gets to work on the root issues, it puts the white progressive industrial complex out of business. So that's the major that's the thing. That's what this brother is up against. I just think, it's one thing to have a $915 million budget in the city of Newark, which anything on a municipal level is extremely limited in what it can do in terms of, and that's small of a budget in terms of what it can do to really stimulate an economy. And most of these cities, when they do stimulate, and it's because they basically have to sell so much away to attract corporate business in. And then we know how that can lead to gentrification and all these other things if it's not done right. But think about that same power in this progressive mind with a $57 billion budget. And see, the issue here is that
with the surplus.
Is it exactly with a surplus? White progressives never want a Black man that knows what it's going to take to change the situation to ever have the keys to that kind of power. And that's what we're dealing with. And so that's why we got to get out there. That's why we got to strive. That's why we got to push, because white progressives ain't coming to save us. And if we don't do something really transformative in terms of the vote, we will keep having the same. And here's the other thing, just lastly, we have a whole lot of Black folks whose whole incomes are dependent upon the white progressive party boss system. And their job is to go and bring disillusionment around a campaign like Ras's to other Black folks. They are sent to come into our spaces to say why it can't happen and why it's not going to work, and white folks ain't going to vote for them, in order to see that. And it's all because literally they're on the payroll of a boss. Like, we know this. Anybody that knows the system, we know this. So stop playing. Like some of these Black folk need, just disclose the fact that you're bought and paid for. Just tell everybody so we can make a real decision. And then there's some folks who were kicked out by one boss and that are hopeful that the new boss coming in will bring them back in. And these folks know exactly who they are. So I'm just saying, we need to know exactly what's going on. Understand that if you have a Black person that is in this political space that is not supporting this campaign, 9 times out of 10, it is because they're already bought and paid for, or they're just paying no attention at all to any of these issues. or they're just straight up Trump supporters. There's only but so there's only but so many. I'm sorry to ramble, but that's
No. I think
But
you're right on point. And Damon, you gotta throw in your 2 cents
but
on
Chairman, I was
that.
gonna say one of our quotes or our beliefs at People's Organization of Progress is power to the people. What if all the registered voters in Essex County came out and voted 100%? How would that turn the needle? Essex and Union. Let's grab those two. Very dense counties.
Reverend, I want to ask you, what is your opinion
Chairman, I'm sorry, did
on
you
the?
hear my question? Did
I,
you hear my
I
question, sir?
it didn't come to me as a question. It sounded more like a statement. What is the
Okay,
question?
I'll leave it. No, the question is what if that because we only voted like
What
30% in
if
our
what? What if what?
they came
What if?
out and voted. They voted. People to understand the power that they have and just voted. They have to
Yes,
understand because people don't believe.
everybody in Essex County should come out and vote, but the mayor cannot win the state of New Jersey with Essex County alone. There are 21 counties in New Jersey, and there are 3 or 4 that have more population than Essex County. People in Essex County think like Essex County is like Texas.
You do.
It's not. I mean, it's a big, powerful county. That's
Mhm.
indisputable. But Essex is not the most populous county in the state of New Jersey. So, yes, the answer to your question is yes. The outcome, the chances of Mayor Baraka's victory would be improved if everybody in Essex County comes out. But really, what we need everybody in New Jersey to come out. And more directly, we need Black people in New Jersey, in the 21 counties to come out. Because if that happened, he would surely win the election. I do not believe, and I could be wrong on this, I do not believe that any of the 5 other Democratic candidates are going to win with a majority. I think the election is going to be won with a plurality, like who has the most votes. You know, it may not be 50%, it may be 35%, 38, something like that. I
Mhm.
would be surprised. I'm not trying to be a predictor of things, an oracle. I just would be surprised if the winning candidate wins with 50 plus 1% of the vote. I'd be very surprised by that. The message that we have to send far and wide is that Black people need to vote. Black people should not be discouraged by these purveyors of despair that Reverend Boyer was talking about, these naysayers and hopeless people who think, that the only way to do things is to do them the way they've been done. You know, uh, we got to come out, and we have to come out in significant numbers all over this state. But the question I wanted I, I wanted to ask, because I have some comments about Reverend Boyer's first statement, but
Right.
I'd like him to augment that by addressing this issue that there's more than one Black person in the race. What is your view on that? What is your perspective and analysis? How should how should Black people approach that?
well, listen.
I'm trying to keep from laughing. Go ahead, Charles.
So there is more than one Black person in the race, technically. let me say this. There is only one Black person that has been and is right now a champion of Black issues and understands Black people, has lived amongst Black people, knows Black people, and has run a city of a majority of Black people, and not just a scattering of upper echelon 2 or 3 generations removed from poverty Black people. And so I'll put it that way. So I think that that's important. This is the first time that there is a Black candidate that is Black in every sense of the word, in every sense of the description. Culturally Black, always been Black, didn't just start talking about being Black, comes from a heritage of Blackness, is infused with the depths of the souls of Black folk. There's only one candidate, and that's Ras Baraka.
You mean Sean doesn't have the other kind of stuff you're talking about? I mean, he's a teacher, he's the mayor of a town too. I mean, come on.
Look, I'm not throwing any shade to Sean. I don't like to.
I'll try to be polite too.
I hear you. I mean, I know Sean Spiller. I respect him. I've seen him in the lane of the teachers union stuff, and no shade to him, but I think he would have to admit, right? He has not been on the front line of Black issues in an unashamedly Black way. To this day on those debate stages, there's only one candidate, which is Ras Baraka, that unashamedly even says Black.
Unapologetically, that's right.
We are invisible to every other candidate on that stage.
Wow.
We are invisible.
Wow.
And our issues don't even take a backseat. They don't even make it to the trunk.
They ain't even in the conversation. That's right.
They ain't even in the vehicle.
That's
and
right.
So there's only one candidate. And so for me, why I talk in such plain language about, a Black man in the race, is said because it don't take much to really parse that out to see exactly, what I'm talking about. I'm not, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just saying what I'm saying.
Even before, and this is my, and let me interject my anger with these democratic machines. Even before the Democratic Party machine came out for Mickey Sherrill, right? NEA didn't even have a meaningful conversation and came out for Spiller. Spiller ain't the only educator in this campaign either. That's so unprincipled, right? And so Soprano State characteristic of how the decks get stacked in party machine stuff. And yet still, and after all of that, after all of those shenanigans, when you put all the voices, on the microphone, put them all on the round table, it's like night and day. It's night and day. It's night and day. And it's infuriating. I'm raising that to say, because I asked this question to Jason, because I know that's got to be a difficult spot for anybody that's doing this work and having these conversations with some of our people, because some of our people get caught up in this stuff, right? Because we got these Black faces, that are like, well, we gotta be careful, and can he really get the white vote and all that? Talk to your white folks. You all close with white folks and worried about what? Talk to your white folks, right? I talk to them. They run when I talk to them, but I do talk to them.
I just want to, I just like the chairman said, I am not going to put this kind of energy or anywhere near this kind of energy into any candidate that is not as passionate for the people I serve as I am. And I'm not putting and it is up to Black people to
That's
stop.
good blacks. That's good Black common sense.
Exactly. And it is up to Black people. The last thing we should be doing is chasing the white unicorn voter, which does not exist. This majority of white folks that are going to vote for anything that is even on the same hemisphere as Blackness. So even these other candidates moderating, but just the fact that they have even the slightest somewhat association with the fact that they're part of the party that delivered civil rights, et cetera, that alone damns them from ever getting a plurality, a majority, I should say, a majority of the white vote. And so we as Black people, the last thing we should be doing is moderating and chasing a vote that does not exist and that is always voting against our interests. And just like Brother Chairman said, if Black people showed, I mean, even if you can't stand Ras Baraka, if Black people voted, if we voted, then who does Ras have to be accountable to?
That's right. That's right. A lot is going to be said about Black people after this election. This is not, Ras Baraka is not
That's
the
a
only
mouthful
one
again, man.
on
That's
the
the mic
ballot.
dropper.
Black people are on the ballot because Ras
In the
Baraka
state that gave birth to racial
could
profiling.
win this election if we come out and vote in our numbers. We don't even have to come out in record numbers. If we would come out in a higher than average voter turnout, it doesn't even have to be Obama level. It could be if we came out the way we came out for Murphy. See, this is why we on the ballot. This is why we on the ballot. Because this is also our judgment. Because in the end, it's not just going to be Ras Baraka, the candidate, who's going to be judged about the outcome of this election, his performance. It's going to be Black people. And everybody knows this. Everybody knows this. The white people know it. We know it. Everybody knows this. It's like the unspoken thing in the room. You know,
White folks don't talk about race.
don't come out the way you came out for Murphy. If we come out the way we came for Murphy, together with whatever fraction of the white vote Ras can get and whatever fraction of the Hispanic vote he can get, he would have 30 to 35% of the vote and he could win the election. I got my ballot in the mail the other day. Now, this is something, Donna, maybe you can speak to. I got my ballot in the mail the other day. And to my surprise, Ras Baraka was like 5A in his own county. You hear what I'm saying, Brother Boyer? Gottheimer, who lives, I believe, in Sussex County, is 1A. I mean, how does that happen in a county where the chairman of the Democratic Party organization is Black? The mayor of the largest city in the county is Black. How is it that Ras Baraka is 5A on Essex County's ballot?
And we're supposed to be in the time when we don't have to deal with the line anymore.
Exactly. But I was stunned. It was stunning when I opened my ballot, to see, because I'm looking right at the top for Raz. I said, he going to be 1 or 2, but he's 5. But nonetheless, we can't because scientifically, everybody knows there was a whole court case on ballot positioning.
That's right.
Last year, there was a whole court case on it. It's out in the open. Before, it used to be conjecture and secret knowledge, Masonic knowledge and all of that. But everybody knows scientifically that ballot positioning impacts the outcome of an election. I think they said something like 15%, as much as 15%. So even though Ras in Essex County, and this is the part, Donna, where we have
That's
to
where Donna was
augment
going with the question.
we have to augment the question of Essex County.
Mhm.
Essex County people got to come out and vote like Ras Baraka is at the top of the column. We can't come out there and vote like he's 5th. I can't believe Gottheimer is 1A in Essex County. I'm
So
stunned.
here, Pastor Boyer, do you have your ballot? Pastor Boyer, do you have your ballot?
I do not.
You don't have your ballot yet? Yeah, we need to compare that next week. We have to look at that. That'll be I see if we can pull from at least 5 different municipalities and just see the places.
But I want to go back to something else that Reverend Boyer said, because I agree with his analysis. I just maybe would tweak the is the party bosses are not progressives. They're not. At best, they're white liberals. I mean, there are litmus tests. They're like a couple off the top. Like, how do you know if someone in the Democratic Party is progressive? Like, did they vote for Bernie Sanders? Did they vote for Bernie Sanders in 16? And did they vote for, in the primary I'm talking about, did they vote for Bernie Sanders in 16? And did they vote for Bernie Sanders in 20? Another issue would be, where did they stand on the issue of the genocidal war in Gaza? I mean, when I was running for the U.S., when I was running for the U.S. Senate, none of them would say stop. I was the only one that was saying stop military aid to Israel. There were a couple of others that were saying the war should stop, but no one was saying stop military aid to Israel. And some of them, when it first happened, I mean, the governor's wife, remember, she was a candidate. And she was openly on the side of Israel and remained there. Now, I don't know where she is today. And then you had the incumbents, Andy Kim.
Right.
Andy Kim voted every vote.
Every time.
For the aid to Israel to continue the war. People talk about Joe Biden. Joe Biden, if there really was a functioning international court of justice, Joe Biden would be in the dock because he funded the genocide. Imagine, Reverend Boyer, if the U.S. had said, this is Israel's problem, deal with it. We're not going to give you more aid in one cycle than we've ever given you in the 48 years we've been giving aid to Israel. The Israelis were only able to carry out this genocide via the aid that they got from the United States. But Reverend Boy, you're not off target here. I'm just tweaking a little bit. The party bosses at best are centrists and liberals. And then you got some people, I mean, Gottheimer is not even a liberal. No, Gottheimer's a right-wing Democrat.
He's terrible.
Who receives aid from AIPAC and all these other people. I mean, to really look at and try to determine who's progressive and who's not, look at who's giving them money. Look at who are their largest donors. But Reverend Boyer, you're still on target because something is to be said to the churches of Thyatira. I hate to go there, Reverend. I hate to go there, but something must be said because a lot of the folks who I would actually say, I'm talking about the grassroots, now, a lot of the white folks and Latinos who are progressive, they not with Ras. And they should, and how do I know this? Because they wasn't with me. Listen to this. I was the campaign chairman for Bernie Sanders in 20. And our revolution, Bernie Sanders' organization in New Jersey, would not endorse my senatorial race. See, I got facts. I don't have to conjecture, and I got experience, But what I'm saying, Reverend Boy, is you're on target because W.E.B. Du Bois said, the great problem of the 21st century is the problem of the color line.
That's what he said.
And I hate to say it, but the great problem of the 20th century is still the color line. And this color line is running through the progressive community because the non-black progressives won't support a progressive candidate. And that's the other thing I need to say, is that skin color by itself doesn't determine.
Damn thing. Class
well, it does mean something. See, I don't accept the thing that it don't mean anything. It does mean something, but it is not the major determinant of where a candidate is on the political spectrum. Where they are on the political spectrum is based on their positions on the issues. A candidate that's calling for a living wage, not an increase in the minimum wage, but a living wage, that's a progressive candidate.
That's right.
I was down in Barrington today demonstrating with people who are calling for you. We were in front of Andy Kim's office, Reverend Boyer, demonstrating for universal health care, Medicare for all. Even Cory Booker is on the Medicare for all bill. Andy Kim is not on the Medicare for all bill. So you got to look at where they stand. What have they said about Haiti?
Right.
What have they said about the Mount Laurel decision? And the fact that housing segregation in New Jersey is worse today than it was when the Mount Laurel decision was made.
That's right.
So we have to look at these I would say among the gubernatorial candidates, there are no progressives except Ras Baraka. Ras Baraka is the progressive. The rest of them are centrists, liberals, and right-wing Democrats. Ras Baraka, why would I vote for Ras Baraka? I would vote for Ras Baraka because I know that he wouldn't betray me.
Chairman, hold that thought.
Listen to this. Listen to this.
Okay.
Listen to this.
Put your video back on.
What did I do? I shut myself off.
Not your voice, so keep talking.
Keep your phone up, but you're coming in good.
Go to somebody else. I've deleted myself from this conversation.
We have thank Brother Chino and Brother Lamont for being here. But I want to talk about one of the under Phil Murphy, right, Chino? That legislation was passed?
That's correct, Donna.
Okay, so when one of the first in Phil Murphy's first 4 years, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, one of the legislations that were passed, and Pastor Boyer, I believe you were instrumental on this legislation. Everybody was prior to Governor Murphy, persons that were on parole or probation could not vote.
Right.
Chino Ortiz is here. He's with the organization that he founded, him and his brother, Returning Citizen Support Group, that meets on Thursdays in Newark on Prince Street. And they advocated and pushed. They were ready for that progressive governor to come in, and that legislation, the work y'all did to get that passed. And I believe on the first ask, you asked for people, parole, probation, and people behind the wall, because it's not uncommon, because in Vermont and Maine, those are the two states in the U.S. where you can vote behind the wall. They take the ballot into the prison system. But in New Jersey, we were only able to get persons on parole and probation, which was a big net number. When you look at that number, it is tremendous. And those, I know, Chino, you're still reaching some challenges as opposed to when persons get their packages on parole or probation, there's not a voter registration in there. So what are you doing? And Pastor Boyd and I know, and I have to say, Brother Lamont, I see you from Philly, and some of the first work I did with returning citizens was in Philly when we were out there walking, trying to get returning citizens to vote for, because I think y'all vote for your prosecutor, your DA out there, and y'all were trying to put a person in. The returning citizens named the person that they want in. So, Chino, what is it that you're doing to work with the returning citizens in terms of making sure they get out to vote?
Well, first of all, let me say also before I thank you for inviting me, Donna. It's always a privilege and an honor to be in the same space with Reverend Charles Boyer, Larry Hamm. You guys are icons. Reverend Boyer was, when I first came home, he was one of the first people that I connected with Amos, and he's been doing this work for a long time. But yes, Donna, and also I want to. You neglected to mention my twin, Altariq Richard. He's one of our co-founders as well. Um, yeah, I mean, um, Governor Murphy in 2020 signed legislation restoring the rights for people on probation and parole to have the right to vote. That was then 85,000. Now it's probably a lot more, right? But when you multiply that 85,000, right? Because I got nieces, I got nephews, I got a sister, I got a brother, and I can influence them. So my one vote turns into five. So multiply that 85,000 by five. That's power, right? Um, but unfortunately, there are still a lot of men and women who are on probation and parole that do not know they have the right to vote, right? And when you leave prison, they give you a package. 9 times out of 10, the person leaving prison is throwing that package away, right? They're only going to grab the medical records, the medication prescriptions, and the rest of that stuff. They just throw it out because they don't know the importance. It's not emphasized when they leave in prison, right? But also, we got brothers and sisters in the county jail that have the right to vote. Also, Puerto Rico's allow their prisoners to vote. So it's Vermont, Puerto Rico, and New Hampshire. So one of the things that we do, right, when brothers and sisters come to our office for services, the first thing I ask them is, are you registered to vote? Right? Because if you're not, we want to register you to vote. Right? We also, in fact, we having our annual cookout next Saturday. You're all invited. Um, and Brother Zaid, he was there last year. Hopefully, we can see you again at the cookout. But at the cookout, we have people talk about voter registration, get people registered, um, and I support Ras personally, and as an organization because we're a 501(c), we cannot sponsor him as an organization. But nevertheless, we have political conversations at our Thursday night support group, and we talk about the importance of voting, right? And I don't know if it was Reverend Boyer mentioned, right? I tell people, even if you don't agree with Rod's policies, even if you don't agree, you don't like him as a person, right? He's the only candidate that's going to make sure that black and brown people continue to progress in this country, right? In the state. And because the reality is, if you look at Newark, right? Like you go in places in Newark and you got returning citizens that are holding positions in the city, right? That you won't see in other counties, right? So Ross is very instrumental in helping brothers and sisters that are coming home from prison, right? So but one of the we constantly register people to vote. We also inform people about candidates to educate themselves, right? Know where a candidate stands at, right? Because when Phil Murphy leaves office, right, he pardoned so far over 100 and I would say 40 people. And I beg to different that none of the other candidates except Ras will continue that tradition, right? And pardoning, other people behind the wall and outside of the wall who are facing surmountable challenges and obstacles in housing and employment, right? So one of the things too, um, in order to empower the community, we also reach out to the brothers and sisters who are behind the wall, right? Because they can't vote, but they have families, right? And we tell them, if you have a family, call them, tell them, get out and vote, because, a lot of the progress that we've made here in the state of New Jersey around social justice has come because of the movement out here and the governor currently, right? So if we want to continue, this social justice movement and dismantling these systems that oppress Black and brown communities, and in fact, New Jersey has the highest disproportionality of incarceration in the whole nation, right? So these are factors that we talk about at the Returning
Hopeful
Citizen
urgency
Support
on that.
Group. We inform our community, right? Why it's important to vote and to make a sound decision.
Sheena, hold that thought. We're going to bring Brother Lamont into the conversation. Brother Lamont, thank you for being here from Philly. And Pastor Boyer, you can come up with the follow-up question. Hey, Brother Lamont, thank you for
How
being
you doing?
here. We're going to make this work.
How you doing,
We
man?
thank
I want to make
you
a
for
I
here
want to make a
tonight.
correction.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm not
Who's
from
making a
Philly.
correction?
I'm
Brother
from
Lamont?
me. Yes. I'm
You're
not from
from, I
Philly.
apologize, where are you from?
I'm from Newark.
Uh-huh.
I'm from Newark. I live in
Okay.
Philly.
Okay. Okay. Well,
So we
I
gotta
stand
make
corrected,
that
sir. And thank you for.
make that
And where
distinction.
you voting at now? In Newark or Philly?
Well, I don't vote.
Okay. We're gonna
That's
have that
just my
conversation.
preference.
Okay. Okay. That's your preference.
The
But we
mine is off
understand.
for a totally different reason.
Okay. That's
Where is that?
perfect.
Yeah, because Ed brought him on for a totally different conversation. I was hoping to jump
He's
back
here to
in.
talk about Cease the Fire in Philadelphia, sir.
Yes.
Brother Lamont? Okay.
Yes.
Do you, okay, so everybody please stay who can stay, because we're gonna continue talking about to get out the vote. Brother Lamont, can you tell us what's going on in Philly that brings you here today in terms of Cease the Fire? And give us a little background
Uh,
about yourself, other than that you're from Newark, New Jersey.
in the name of Allah, the beneficent and merciful, I bear witness there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. Peace. Just would like to thank Ed for reaching out to me and bringing me on, and like to thank you for having me on your platform. I'm from Newark. I moved out of Newark in 2013 and came down to the South Jersey area, and then I got remarried and moved to Philadelphia. So I've been in Philadelphia the last 7 months. In terms of this ceasefire, so in 2004 in Newark, there was a lot of beefs happening. There was a lot of killing going on. So Raz, brother David Muhammad, myself, brother Zaid, a lot of us got together to form what you have now is called the Newark Anti-Violence Coalition. And it was on the basis of a female being killed, just going to the store, and she I forgot her name, but
Dr.
she was
Allen.
killed.
Keisha.
Natasha Allen.
I mean,
And
Lakeisha Allen. Lakeisha Allen. I'm sorry.
Lakeisha Allen, right. So Raz made a call for the men to come together to address these problems. 2004, there was a truce that was formed with multiple gangs, the heads of multiple gangs. We had the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan come into the city, address these particular issues. So from 2004 to I believe now, the Newark Anti-Violence Coalition and those who've been around have been promoting this peace effort. Raz wasn't a mayor at the time; he was a principal. So a lot of people that started it then, they're in key position now. So here in Philadelphia, the same thing that was taking place in 2004 is now happening now in this city. We just had a little boy by the name of LGP Qua. He was they considered him the voice of the youth, and he was murdered by claimed by his friend at a cookout on Mother's Day for a chain. There was a female, she was shot in the head and thrown out a moving car. So we've been having multiple killings. It's been shootings at the id festivals, and we just had a mass shooting at Fairmont Park a couple days ago. So it's a lot of killing going on. So because I live in the city, I just said, okay, we did it in Newark, so let me make this call. I just walked in my brother's shoes, brother Raz, and said I'm gonna make a call to see who answers. It's not to follow me. I'm just following something that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan asked us to do. The minister told us to get in the streets. He said, stop the violence and work the peace. So that's what I'm striving to do. So the call is a 90-day, it's a call to action. It's a 90-day ceasefire. We're asking, just put down the guns, stop the beeps for a second. Just give yourself 90 days. Give the families 90 days to heal. Give the communities 90 days to heal. Give yourself 90 days to heal. We're not saying that the people not going to continue to die. We're not saying none of that. We're not saying that things are not going to continue to happen. But we have to make some type of effort to try to bring this to a hold. See, when you deal with peace, you're dealing with absence of confusion. When you're dealing with peace, you're dealing with tranquility. When you're dealing with peace, you're dealing with a silence of the mind. So we're asking. When I say we is under what you will call citizens of peace. It's not under I'm gonna repeat this. It's not under the Nation of Islam. It's not under that banner. It's not under no religious banner. It's just I am in the Nation of Islam, and I'm asking those who are in the community, those who want peace, those who want to advocate peace, those who are about peace, to come on, promote this 90-day ceasefire. We got June till September. That's a little over 90 days, but we're asking for that. Prophet Muhammad's peace and blessings said it like this. He said, whoever among you sees an evil action, then let him change it with his hand by taking action. He said, if he cannot, then with his tongue by speaking out. And if he cannot, then with his heart. And that is the weakest of faith.
Yes,
So
sir.
So that whole hadith is a call to action. So that's what this is. This is a call to action. This is not a call to religion. Because see, this is where it get twisted at. When that bullet come out of that chamber, that bullet don't have a religion. It don't care whether you're a Catholic, a Muslim, a Christian, a Blood, a Crip. It don't care what block you from. When that bullet come out of that chamber, that bullet is seeking a target. And it don't care whether it's innocent or a deliberate target. That's what that bullet is searching for. So it's bigger than religion. This is about men of faith. I'm calling for the men, because there's a lot of women dying. It's a lot of babies dying. We got 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds on up carrying weapons. So the question becomes, how they getting the weapons? Who's giving them these weapons? And these are the conversations that nobody really want to address. We can come up with a program. We can come up with all that. And that's fine. That's the next step. But right now, we have to ask for a call to action. And I'm going to read it so we can have a understanding to what I'm saying. So it reads like this. Calling for a ceasefire 90-day peace agreement. Citizens of peace, again, those who are about peace, is issuing a powerful call to action. We are declaring a 90-day ceasefire in our communities. To every person, young or old, with unresolved conflicts, pain, or issues in the streets, this is your opportunity to pause, reflect, and choose peace. For 90 days, we are asking you to put your weapons down, silence the beef, and give yourself and your community a chance to heal. This agreement is more than a truce. It's a movement to save lives, provide hope, and give a space for real solutions. The Quran says it like this: when you kill one person, it's like you have killed the whole of humanity.
That's right.
But when you save a life, it's like you have saved the life of humanity. So that's what we're asking. Just save one life. And that's why I got the ideal. We did it in Newark, and I know it works because it's still working. So
Well,
I'm presenting it to the city of Philadelphia. Yes, ma'am.
Well, thank you, Brother Lamont. And you're here with your other, with Bashir, who was also a co-founder of Newark Anti-Violence. And if I'm not mistaken, and I realize you're not to the programming part, you're just at the ceasefire part. I see where you are. And the program comes next. I got that. But because you do know how that worked and it's an established, we don't have to recreate anything. And I have Councilwoman Roundtree. I want to say that anti-violence evolved into the violence reduction, which is federal legislation. Am I correct, Zaid?
Say it again.
The anti-violence kind of developed into the violence reduction, which is federal legislation as well now.
No, what we've done for the most part is local, but
it also
under the Biden administration, the Justice Department did invest in community-based violence intervention, including creating an Office of Violence Prevention on the strength of our example here in Newark.
Wow.
Right.
Yep. That's it. That's it.
And I say that to say, Brother Lamont, that you go ahead. I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead.
And
Lamont.
we issued violence as a public health issue before it even went that far. That's what we were promoting. We were promoting violence as a public health issue. And we kept promoting that, and we had to go up against the police. We had to go get up against city officials. We had to go up against things. Hell, some of us even got arrested for it in Irvington, New Jersey, because a woman got shot and she was pregnant, and we went through the formalities of that stuff. So we had to be in the trenches before it ventured into wherever it's at right now. I don't know where it's at right now, but I just use that as an example because I know that's what I came from. So
no, I wanted to let you know.
Hold on, Ms. I don't mean to cut you off. No, Philadelphia is different. Philadelphia is different from Newark. So what I'm saying here, you can't move the way we moved in Newark. So because they don't, first of all, they don't have gangs here. So it's a different, it's a different monster, and it's a different beast here. Beast. You have neighborhoods. You have different type of elements here that's way totally different from Newark, New Jersey. So how we did it in Newark, we can't move the way we moved in Newark because we're dealing with a totally different criteria and a totally different thing. So
no,
I'm going about it. I'm going
no, but I was
the
only thing I was suggesting. Only thing I was suggesting to you, Brother Lamont, is that you have the so the ideas in your head based on what you did. So you have the resources all the way up to the federal level. That's the only thing I wanted to say. And tonight Bashir is here as well. So and Chairman and Pop. And if I could, I would touch base with Ed to see if we can get some support and have you on some of our other local meetings and see are you going to be doing anything in those 90 days, or are you just telling people to put down the guns? That's it.
Well, right now it's a call to action. The next thing that comes is the peace agreement. Because we have, just like they have the Newark peace agreement, we have the same, I modeled it, and I have the same agreement. But it's called the Philadelphia peace agreement. So within these 90 days, if once we get into a room together to iron out what we need to iron out, then that's where this peace agreement comes at. So it's steps. So right now it's a call to action. The next step behind that call to action is the peace agreement. But we're dealing with rec centers, we're dealing with different things that we have to take ear to the street right now. Cause that's where everything is happening. I can't go nowhere. We have to go to the street. And we have to do what the minister asked us to do. Since I am a member of the Nation of Islam, the minister said go where your people are at. And our people are in the streets.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So what let us know what your next steps where you need us if you're going to be at a meeting to help you pass out flyers at these rec centers and these parks where the people are, or if you have to come back and say we need manpower to do X, Y, and Z. Let us know what it is of us that you need. Please keep us informed with flyers and everything so that we can post them and share them with the Newark Anti-Violence, because they're still in effect, as well as my other local organization. POP is on, Social Justice is on. Returning, you have 5 organizations on right now that you're speaking to.
Right.
So if you continue to share us information, Brother Lamont, and continue to come back during the 90 days and say, hey, this is what we're doing this week, and let us know all roads lead to wherever you're going to be. I know South Street or wherever you're going to go. Let us know. Zaid?
Donna, we need to clear up some things though that need to be cleared up though, right?
First Lady is okay.
There are no federal funds available under this administration the way we do it. We're under the last administration. In fact, we got a class action lawsuit to get Donald Trump to get his ugly, racist, fascist hands off the money that is already supposed to be allocated to community-based violence intervention before his behind came into office. Right. We all want to make that real clear. There's no federal go-to under the Trump under this Trump regime. We need to be real clear about that. Also, there's a conference coming up, Lamont, that I want everybody in the Philadelphia area to be aware of. That's happening in Atlantic City, relatively close to Philly, called Pull Up for Peace, and it's a regional conference that will deal with folks who are doing community-based violence intervention from as far north as Boston, all the way down as far south as Virginia. That's June 24th to June 26th at Atlantic City. So we need folks from Philly to be up in that space. So there's some practical stuff that's happening in an immediate way that we all need to be uniting on.
Okay.
Yes,
so
sir.
We're moving. So Brother Lamont, please. Bashir, is there anything that you want to say to Brother Lamont?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good to see you, black man. I don't know.
Walaikum salam.
All right, Hotep, peace. I just wanted to say, keep pushing, family.
Bashir, hold on. Bashir, hold on for a second, man. Listen, the first lady is on. She's with the children. So let's bring her on so she can go ahead and make her announcement as it relates to the rally she's going to hold tomorrow. Let's bring her on, and then everybody else we can continue on after she make her announcement. All right, because she's got the children, so it's difficult to keep them while she's trying to do all of that at one time.
No, we're flexible. We can do it. First Lady Baraka.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. It's good to be on again. At this last minute, Ms. Roundtree just texted me and told me to get on. But I definitely want to get on to make sure that we invited all of you and all of your listeners out to our Boots on the Ground rally tomorrow. As we know, we have a very important election coming up in about 11 days, right? Like in voting, you can actually vote via mail now. Yes. You can vote via mail now, and early voting will start on Tuesday, the 3rd through June 8th, and election day is actually on June 8th. But tomorrow at 11 a.m. at NJ PAX, will be doing a boots on the ground rally for women
Yes.
in support of Mayor Ras Baraka for governor. And so we're just
Yes.
inviting everyone out to be there with us tomorrow at 11 a.m. at NJPAC.
First Lady
So
Baraka.
I kept leaving, Donna. I kept
I
leaving
know. I just wanted to
because
tell her, First Lady Baraka, I just want to let you know one of my favorite tapes of Amiri is he's doing a report for like 45 minutes, and one of the babies come up to him crying because they wanted Pop Pop. And they didn't
right,
stop crying until he set him
right
on the
until
lap.
he
So
said, "Yep,
Right,
you're right where you're
right.
supposed to be, sir.
Same,
So
same
thank
right
you.
now.
Okay,
So
we got you.
let's make sure. I wanted to actually bring the first lady on because we've been tirelessly making sure that the women show up tomorrow for boots on the ground rally. We want to make sure Donna, all your sisters, all those brothers that are on, y'all can show up too, but bring some sisters with you. Larry Ham, Pop. Y'all bring some sisters with you. If you can't come, make sure you share the flyer. Let me tell you this, we are not, we're going to win. But I know I want all my friends and listen, I don't know what you consider yourself in our lives, but this is one time, if not ever in life before, that we need to show ourselves united. We've been
And
too
that's
many times
tomorrow.
standing on separate fronts. We need to be there at 10:30, breaking down the walls and come in the NJ pack. We want to be 700 strong. So please, ma'am, please, sir, if you're tuned into this live, show up with the women for Baraka, for Ras Baraka, as he becomes our next governor.
And if
First
they
lady,
can't register prior, they can
just show
register on
up.
site.
Just
Just
show up.
show up.
Just
Okay.
show up. At
Okay.
this point, just it's tonight. I had one lady told me she couldn't register. We're not just show up. I told her just come. Bring some folks with you. You know, if people are there, and I told them when you get there, just so we can have a record, give your information to somebody on the team, so we can make sure you're in our system. But just show up. Rain,
Okay.
shine, sleet, or snow, just show. That's what I've been
Just
saying.
show up. Okay. Be there with
I'm actually in
thank
Burlington County right now. Been to Asbury Park. Our governor is on the move up and down this state. And in spite of, you want people to always be kind and always be nice. You're doing something right when there's folks who want to be you, you just don't know what to do, so they just try to come against you. So I just thank God for this journey. First Lady, I love her. We need to stand behind her husband, pray for them. Pray for Brother Muhammad. We all have to have all our hands in everywhere we are assigned. Wherever our hands are supposed to be, your hands might not supposed to be where I'm at. Maybe they're supposed to be somewhere else. But all our
But
hands need to be on deck for this election. And wherever Brother Muhammad is, wherever Saeed is, wherever Brother Ed is, wherever you are.
Pastor Roundtree, you know what?
Yes.
As challenging as we thought the schedule got turned around, the first thing we talked about that Jason talked about is that Mayor Baraka has a proven record of what he's done. And then the brother from that lives in Philadelphia comes on and starts talking about what he learned under not the mayor, then he was just Ras Baraka, a principal, who put together this anti-violence. And so his track history that we didn't ask anybody to come on and tell about, that is now, and that has gone all the way up to the federal level. They called him in to teach it at the federal level. So I think everything is happening the way it needs to be happening, and let's just keep moving forward.
Yes.
And you're
And
going to
I'm going
show up
back
down
into
at
my event.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. What were you saying?
I didn't hear you.
No, I said I'm going back into this event that
Okay.
the mayor is speaking at. Our next governor, Governor Ras Baraka.
Thank you. And thank you, First Lady Baraka, for being here as well. And all roads lead to NJPAC. Arrive at 10:30. Program starts at 11. If you have not registered, you can register on site. Please try to arrive at 10:30. Program starts at
I
11.
just sent the flyer back
NJPAC,
to.
Newark, New Jersey. Tomorrow, May 31st.
Yes.
Thank
you for
You're welcome.
having us on All Politics, our local Number one. New Jersey's Newark's number one, hip hop radio Facebook station. I love you guys. Thank you, Brother Ed.
They love you more. So, Pastor Boyer, we were talking about, Chino was talking about the returning citizens, and I didn't know about Puerto Rico. Thank you, Chino, for that. I didn't know that Puerto Rico, that they let people vote behind the wall as well.
Yeah.
So, and he said it was 85, but don't just look at that flat number. Look at the people that they have access to in their households and everything. So, how are we maximizing the returning citizens vote?
Let's get some pictures.
Yeah, I just wanna shout out Chino as well. I mean, he's I just
very proud of that little brother. I remember the day I met him.
Yeah, man. I mean, just
that work.
Yeah,
Wait,
yeah.
let me, Chino, take that marker out the window so everybody don't have your business, please, while you're driving. Okay.
We need that.
So you don't have no duplicates.
Somebody gonna read that number off and be up in Chino's spaces. They're gonna be. But no, just very proud of him and the work he's done, and I just always want to say his brothers like Chino who also hold preachers like myself accountable. You know what I mean? So I just want to state that for the record, because it's not only politicians that need to be held accountable, preachers need to be held accountable as well. And so brothers like Chino do very well. I mean, you know, they always come with love, but they always come and make sure that, you know, if you ain't keeping it real, you need to cut it out. So I just appreciate Chino. Yeah, I mean, it is a major challenge, but everything that Chino laid out is exactly what I think it's going to take. We experience the same thing. Salvation and Social Justice, we've done expungement clinics all over the state. And we're doing them in Black churches in partnership with the Office of the Public Defender. Every time folks are coming in, we are working to get them registered, and asking that same question: did you know you are now eligible? And almost to the person, they did not know. And so, you know, as powerful as this legislation was, you know, there was no major budget to get the word out.
Right, in education, that's
exactly,
right.
And to do the education. And so we have to pull that education at every level. So if we're doing expungement clinics, if whatever we're doing, every space we're in, just like you all with the radio show, every space we're in, we have to keep getting this word out. And also the same thing, we service, Salvation and Social Justice in the city of Trenton, provide all kinds of services, but most specifically housing for folks who are coming home. We try to match them up with housing, either housing that we have or that our partners have. And as we're helping them and doing the intake, one of the first questions is, are you registered? And did you know you can register, that you are now eligible to vote? And again, to the person, the answer is no. And so we register them on the spot. What we're hoping to do over time, but what we're doing right away, what we're doing even in this moment, Salvation and Social Justice, because we now have these folks' contact info, is sending that blast, sending that information, saying, hey, now is time to vote. Did you go and vote. Over time, the kinds of things that the reason I want to highlight this, what is important is when we're having these conversations with folks, as we're trying to help them with record expungement or trying to connect them with housing, that's the best time for us to also help educate people on why their vote matters. Because it's because of voting and it's because of advocacy that we are even in the space to be able to help them at that moment. And so if they don't kind of give back by voting, it renders organizations like ours, organizations like Chino's, it makes it that much harder for us to push for these very kinds of things that actually help them out. Because something that the chairman said earlier, which is, I just couldn't agree more. And I've been saying similarly, but nowhere near as eloquently as he, that Black people are on the ballot. Brown folks are on the ballot.
Yes.
Folks who are coming home are on the ballot. All the stuff we fight for is on the ballot. Immigration justice is on the ballot. All of the stuff we are out there shaking the trees all the time about is on the ballot. And if we don't show up, this is the first time it's so explicitly on the ballot in the primary. And so if we don't make a major it gives permission it just says to whoever wins that they don't need to pay attention to us. Now we're all going to keep fighting, but what it does, it makes it that much harder, and things will just get that much worse. If we come out and we turn out strong, then we're better able to fight for all of those things that I just named that are on the ballot.
Chairman, do you have any questions for Chino? You said no.
You know, real quick, Donna.
Okay.
I just wanted to say to Chino something I haven't been able to say. My mother grew up in the Prince Street projects, and you know they're not there no more. But I just want to say that that's my roots, and so I praise God for you.
So you repping Prince Street, okay?
Yeah. Well, you know that was you know, those are the days. Prince Street, Howard Street, 7th Ave, Grafton Avenue. You know, like we had community. You know what I mean? In spite of the issues that we had in the community, right? We had community. We stuck together, and it's imperative that every Black, Latino person that can vote come out and vote for Ras, right? And you know, Ras becoming mayor, right? Just to illustrate how important for him to become the governor of the state of New Jersey, right? A lot of the people that when I go to prisons and I visit the institutions to talk about the services that we provide and how we can help them, everybody wants to come to Newark. Everybody wants to come to Essex County because of the resources that are available, that the mayor has created, the opportunity, right? So, because people in Monmouth County, Ocean County are going to those counties from prison, right? Burlington County,
right?
Worcester County, and so like we need to have reentry services that help our brothers and sisters coming home throughout all 21 counties, right?
Yes, sir.
And the only person that's going to do that is going to be Ras Baraka. He's doing it. He's doing it in Essex County. He's doing it in Newark. He's created opportunities, right? Right now, we are in the process of building a 42-unit apartment building on South Orange Avenue, right? We partnered with some developers. Ras created that opportunity through the equitable investments in Newark community so that we can provide sustainable housing, safe and affordable housing for returning citizens, right? No other mayor in this whole state is doing what Ras. Ras, he's doing it. He's not just talking; he's doing it, and he's the only candidate that's going to continue to create opportunities and reimagine not just Newark but the whole state.
And Chino, you're going to have to come back and talk about that. Chairman Hamm and Pastor Boyer, Bashir, I wanted to know, we have to talk about housing. I know we're doing the governor's race, but that's not the only returning citizens. There's one that's going to be named after former Council President Mildred Crump down on Bergen. I believe there's another returning citizens down there. So we should come back and talk about these projects because these are it's funny we didn't cut out to say let's talk about I know I wrote down legislation that went to the federal level under Biden, which was the Violence Reduction Act and the lead pipe. What he did here in Newark with the lead pipe, how that went all the way up to federal legislation. So he's already proven what he can do at a higher level. But we aren't talking about the housing, the amount, and the economics, and we just ended up talking about it. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and we also.
Okay, I'm sorry, Chino.
Yeah, no, I just want to also, cause I would be remiss if I didn't mention the women, right, that are coming home from the carceral space that are not receiving the same services as men, right? And these are dynamics that we have to change. These are narratives that we have to change.
Real stuff.
And the
Real
only way
stuff.
the only way they're going to change is with Governor Ras Baraka.
Real stuff. I was just at the United Justice Coalition summit today, and the day was filled with sisters who have struggled with all the challenges of coming home, or who have faced the challenge of doing undue time trying to survive abuse. You know, some powerful conversations, and a conversation that is still, for the most part, swept under the rug, that we definitely need to lift up and amplify as we continue to move forward to building these spaces of healing and recovery that we all are trying to pull together with this thing that we call community-based violence and prevention.
So, Pastor Boyer, I know you have to pretty much leave. Is there any last words that you want to say before you leave?
Just, look, we know what we have to do. So on June the 3rd, which is Tuesday.
June the 10th.
Well, June the 3rd, which is Tuesday, starts
early voting. I'm sorry.
Early in-person voting. So and like I said last week, tomorrow is not promised. So if you got a mail-in ballot on your desk, get it in right now. If you're going to do in-person early voting, do that on Tuesday. Don't try to wait till say, oh, well, I go. No, just go do it. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So to all the preachers, church folk, period.
Teach, Reverend.
Even if your pastor ain't talking about it, you talk about it to everybody.
They can talk about it, goddammit. That's right.
You tell everybody in the vestibule. You make your own souls to the polls, even if your pastor ain't paying attention. You tell everybody, who going with me? We gonna go vote. And on this Sunday, which is the 1st, let people know early in-person voting starts on Tuesday. And you please call. So Salvation and Social Justice is going to be pushing out everybody that's on our mailing list. We're pushing out social media graphics. We're pushing out reminders each day of early voting. So different tools that can be used within the faith spaces or whatever. Whatever. You can utilize these things as daily reminders. Please use them. And please remind people every single day to get out there and vote. And whatever leftovers, you take them by the hand on church on Sunday. You take them by the hand on Sunday the 8th, and you go down to the polling place, take them to vote. And then and then after you done got everybody in the church and everywhere else to vote, you go find Pookie, Ray, Deshaun,
all them knuckleheads.
You go
all them knuckleheads. Bring them all
of them. You go find all of them.
Bring them behind on the
down there on Tuesday, June.
Got a sandwich for
everybody up in there.
There you go.
Buy them a sandwich. I don't care. Buy them a sandwich. Get them a gift card.
That's right. Salads and chickens. Y'all know what to do.
Is that right? Get them right. Feed them and take them to the polls.
There you go. There you go.
Pull that lever.
That's right.
For Ras Baraka.
That's
and
right.
tell them their lives depend on it because their lives do.
That's
what I
right.
gotta say. Thank you so much.
That's right. You said it,
Thank you,
Reverend.
Pastor Gloria. I'll be
You said
texting.
it, Reverend.
And Chairman, any questions for Chino or any well, Chino, before we let Chino go, do you have any questions for him or any last words?
No, I just have words of encouragement, Brother Chino. The work that you're doing is absolutely essential, and we want you to keep doing it. I mean, when you consider that nearly 5.6 million people, 5.6 million Black people are under some form of authority of the criminal injustice system, federal prison, state prison, county jails, local jails, on probation, halfway houses. That's nearly 1/10 of the Black population in the
That's
United
Chicago.
States.
That's Chicago.
That's 1/10 of the Black population. No agenda that we can forge, no agenda, Black agenda, people's agenda, any agenda is complete unless we have in that agenda platforms that address the needs of our brothers and sisters that are behind the walls, that are incarcerated under the criminal injustice system. So the work that you're doing, I can't tell you, brother, even though the main work of POP is not necessarily criminal justice, we get calls all the time. We get mail all the time from brothers and sisters who are behind the wall, who need help that we aren't equipped to give them. And so they need advocates like you, Chino, to be out here, you know, doing what you're doing, pointing out what their needs are and what the possible solutions are to this criminal justice state that we have. You know, I don't even want to get started, but you know, America is being unmasked every day. And most folks don't know America has more people in prisons than any other country on the face of the earth. If you put all the prisoners in China, Iraq, Iran together, still would not outnumber the number of people that are imprisoned here in the United States. It's a damning comment. You know, we not we, but what has been created has essentially been a prison state. You know, and then to add insult to injury, they have privatized prisons and made the immiseration of the people who are incarcerated a profit center. And these companies like Geo that owns Delaney Hall, that runs Delaney Hall down there on Route 1, where the ICE agents, the ICE thugs arrested Mayor Baraka. These corporations are profiting off of our suffering, you know, so we have to address the needs of our brothers and sisters who are on that side of the wall, who've come out, and who are now on this side of the wall, because our agenda is not complete unless it includes what the demands that they have.
It's a good wind up. That's a good wind up.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, Chief.
Definitely.
Well, Bashir, did he leave? Bashir still here?
Bashir's gone.
Bashir left. Okay. Well, Chino, thank you for being with us. And we have to ask you the question that I know you heard before.
Thank you for having me.
No, don't leave, Chino. We got to ask one more question, sir. What hip hop artists or individuals
absolutely. I'm not going.
are you listening to when you before that Thursday meeting, or when you get out to get ready for this cookout? Oh, Bashir, you here? You could have asked.
I'll meet him at the gate.
I I'm sorry. I got
Well, go
disconnected.
ahead. Go ahead. You can ask it to Chino. Ask the question.
Don't have a question. No,
The,
I was just
the
I
hip
was just
hop question. Okay, I got it. What hip hop artist, individual, or group are you listening to, Chino, when you're out there doing the work and the Thursday meetings, getting ready for this cookout? Who are you listening to? Did I
And
lose Chino?
he was muted. He's
Chino?
trying to come back in.
Oh, he come back in. Okay. You want to answer?
Yeah, he's driving too. So y'all, we
Yeah,
got to
that's
give
why I
some,
going
some,
to. Yeah,
some
that's
love to
what.
folks who trying to have these
Well, we give him
conversations
pay.
while they're
Don't you
driving.
don't you don't want him to get pulled over
Pharrell, come on, yeah,
on that
Okay.
told him to put
phone.
this handicap thing down while he was
Bashir,
talking.
did
He
you
might
want
need
to
that.
say? Did you want to
what
say
happened?
anything, Bashir?
No, I just wanted to tell Brother Lamont, man, keep pushing, and that, for clarification purposes, there were a lot of groups involved in the ceasefire that happened between the Bloods and Crips, street organizations, back in May 20, that led up to the ceasefire, May 21st, 2004. But some years later, a lot of those groups, Newark Chapter, New Black Panther Party, Nation of Islam, brother David Muhammad, Street Doctor and the Street Warriors, DeLacy Davis, Marquise Quill Lewis, man, Baba Zaid, a lot of these groups, Pop, a lot of these groups, some members of Pop, a lot of these groups helped to create the Newark Anti-Violence Coalition that was established on July 20th, 2009. And the central figure in both uh, formations was our big brother, Ras Baraka. And he was there as an activist. Um, he was a principal. Um, he eventually became an elected official. But in terms of being a mayor, after the establishment of the Newark Anti-Violence Coalition, he back in '04 he was already a deputy mayor, and you know, but he helped to you know launch these formations and did a lot to help increase the peace in the city of Newark. And out of the Newark Anti-Violence Coalition came the Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery, and you know that that his department is like it's an ecosystem of many organizations, violence prevention organizations, conflict resolution organizations that are all working together. Sometimes they work together, sometimes they work independently of each other, but the objective is to create peace in the streets. And his office has done a lot to decrease crime and violence in the city of Newark by 60%. We got to look at that figure, 60%. All right, this is historic for the city of Newark. Nothing like that has ever been accomplished. So big props to brother Raz. Let's get out and vote. Let's push hard to get out and vote for this brother. Um, Raz J. Baraka for governor of the state of New Jersey. That's my piece. All right. Assalamu
Thank
alaikum.
you.
Peace.
And Chairman, we're talking to
Me?
you. You want to tell us who you listening to this week?
Oh, well, I'm gonna sound like a broken record because I don't think no one has a body of work equal to that of Gil Scott Heron, Brian Jackson, and the Midnight Band. I mean, I didn't know that Gil Scott Heron had put out so many albums. I knew I had my share of the albums, but I've learned now in passing that I only have a fraction of the work, and I don't think anyone has put out in an artistic form the number of songs and poems and pieces on social justice issues that Gil Scott Heron has. Almost every song he's done on all the albums that they've created were on one issue or another, has something to do with social justice. I can only think of one that didn't, and that's when he made a song about his daughter, Brown Eyed Girl. And
Your daddy loves you, little girl.
that's right. Your daddy loves you. That's
For
right.
black men, that is a social justice issue.
That's right. That's right.
Well, thank you.
And you know, wait, let me finish.
Okay,
One of
I'm sorry.
the reasons I raised Gil Scott Heron is because, like Billie Holiday, he was engulfed by tragedy. His life ended in a kind of in a tragic way. And I believe, I could be wrong, you guys know more about music than I do, but I believe some of that tragedy probably had to do with the pain that he felt for not being fully embraced by black people. And you know, I almost see a parallel in what's happening with Mayor Baraka. Most people don't know what it takes to mount a statewide campaign for office. Most black people run at local levels. They run for council, they run for the school board, they run for the county freeholders. To run, there's only one other race that's more grueling than either a race for governor or US Senate, and that is the presidential race.
That's right.
And the number of hours that you have to be put in, people don't know. I don't know if a log is being kept, but people would be astounded if they saw the number of hours the candidate has to spend away from his home and away from his family to try to reach all the people around this state, you know. And I see that lack of appreciation that I think that Gil Scott Heron, and it wasn't just that we didn't appreciate him, it was also because the major recording companies did not market him the way that they marketed other artists. There's only one song that he did that made the charts.
Living
And
in the
that was a
bottle.
song, about alcoholism,
Living
about
in
the
the
bottle,
bottle.
about the bottle. But all the other songs he did about how great a people we are, how beautiful a people we are, the history of our people,
They didn't market it.
the issue. No, they wouldn't market him or those albums. So I
Wow.
just wanted to say that. I know I sound like a broken record. You know, whenever you ask me that
But
question,
look,
I
hey,
said,
look, to add to that, bro, Baba Larry, to add to that, man, you know, I'm vibing right now to Little Child, Running Wild, a song by
Curtis
Curtis
Mayfield.
from the 1970s
Yep.
soundtrack.
Yep.
That's a song from the soundtrack Superfly. But you know,
Curtis Mayfield
talk
shares a
about,
birthday with my mother. June 3rd is his birthday.
yeah,
It's the same day Muhammad Ali died.
no doubt. But you know, like Heron, you know, and those brothers spoke to social justice issues, or spoke to the conditions that were creating problems in black and brown and poor communities. You know, it's one of my favorite songs. My father introduced me to Little Child, Running Wild by Curtis Mayfield. He was a big time Curtis Mayfield fan.
Because
You
you
know,
were?
I'm
Because
sorry.
you were? Because you were?
No, I
A little
said that
child? I heard that. Did your dad
oh,
introduce you to it because you were a little child running wild?
nah, I mean, I don't think I was, but you know, but he just talked about how, you know, the conditions were in Newark, you know, growing up in the city. He grew up on Broome Street in Newark, where Howard Street Projects
Right there. Right
was,
there.
and you know, he grew up in abject poverty in Newark, you know, and he wasn't part of anybody's movement or anything like that. He was just trying to survive in America, a black man trying to survive in America, you know.
Soundtrack to our lives.
That's it.
Let me just
Well,
say, Mother.
Bashir, listen, you and Ed are here, so I'm not going to step into the founder's position. I have held down what I was supposed to do. So you know me, we can talk to 10 o'clock, but you are the, you
Now you're
know.
doing a good job, sister. You're doing a good job. You're doing an awesome job. You know, I just
Ed,
wonder. I just wanted to make sure we had that clarification about,
Okay.
ceasefire, man, because that's
Derek, stop.
historic piece, historic event that happened in Newark, because it laid the groundwork, the foundation for serious anti-violence work in the city of Newark. And our big brother Ras Baraka was right dead center of all of that.
Right. And the clarification I do want to make, that I was just trying to point out that the anti-violence, that I didn't want him to try to and we should, well, Ed is the contact for Brother Lamont, that we should continue to talk, because we don't have to reinvent that is a well-documented history. And I like, what, I grew up in a time where I believe our communities were neighborhoods, and it's probably past my generation that our communities are not neighborhoods. And I'm talking from the Oranges downtown in Newark or anywhere. I don't think, I'm born in 67, and leaving Orange, and when I got older, hanging out at Sensations and everything, there was no concern of me going from Orange, going down to Branford or whatever, on the 24 bus or the 21 bus, and we just went about. So I don't think, I've always considered our community, that was the beauty of it, that we can go from neighborhood to neighborhood, and then you would meet people in Sensations, and I would end up hanging down on Muhammad Ali or wherever.
But you know what, Sister Williams, I think in time, our village became broken. Unfortunately, we've had decades of neglect. I mean, you're talking about a secret war was declared on Black America, first with heroin in the 70s, and 1980s was crack cocaine. That is severely damaged our community. On top of the fact that many of our organizations, our leaders, were targeted by COINTELPRO, literally assassinated. Black organizations neutralized, right? And ones that they couldn't kill, they incarcerated many of them, or exiled and drove them out the country. I mean, our community was not slowly, was quickly becoming, it was becoming unglued. It was becoming decimated. And so, to the point where we at today, I understand what Lamont is saying about Philly. It's different accents, different situations, but the conditions of violence is still there.
Right.
That's what we argued in the Newark Anti-Violence Code. We was hitting those streets every Wednesday, right? That, the violence, that the senseless community violence that we're witnessing in Newark is not unique to Newark. It is happening all across Black America, from Newark to Compton, California, and but these things, the roots of it all, again, starts in the 70s, and then the 80s, and yeah, we were having a good time, and it appeared like everything was great, but our communities, our families were slowly withering away. High incarceration rates of Black men just tripled in the 80s. You know what I'm saying?
80s. I was gonna say the 80s. That
Right.
And poor, is it not Poor Righteous Teachers? Not them. The two brothers. I could see them and how they talk about in the 80s how crack just decimated our community. I mean,
absolutely. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there were movements in the 80s, closed the crack house by Sonny Abubadika Carson. He was leading all that, and Omar Wiley Clay and all them brothers and sisters, in New York. I mean,
Black men gets crack. That's what we call it.
Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? Like, these things were, hip hop started making songs about self-destruction, right? We headed for self-destruction. We were making songs about the drugs damaging our neighborhoods and our community. So again, while we were enjoying the music, house music and hip hop, right? Aside from all that, our neighborhoods and our communities were being decimated, And so you talk about generations now. That was happening in the 70s and 80s. Imagine what these little young kids are going through today.
Yep. Well, listen, Bashir, we're going to have to hold you there. We're out of time. We want to thank everybody for coming through. Zaid, you want to thank them young people who came through first, my brother?
The student journalists from, and I apologize to those students. The way, Bashir, you remember, we used to shut the streets down. I would start rallies apologizing to young folks around the whole question of our vulnerability and guided participation in the crack epidemic. The students of Public Square Amplified and their teacher Josie Gonsalves, and Josie is getting her own show on WBAI in a little while. We got to have them back to lift up how that's going to work out. That was a good conversation, and to hear those young heads, some of them high school age, very developed analysis on what it means to try to become a journalist in an age of Trump. It's a very good conversation.
Awesome.
Yep, and then of course, we want to thank all of you all for coming through and lifting up the mayor. We want to thank the good Reverend for coming through. Donna, you want to thank everybody that you had on as well.
Yes, for our continued conversation on Mayor Ras Baraka for Governor 2025. I want to thank Chairman Larry Hamm, Pastor Charles Boyer, Director of Campaign in Orange, Jason C. Grove. I want to Edwin Ortiz, aka Chino, for being here with Returning Citizens support group that meets on Prince Street on Thursdays at 7 p.m. in Newark, New
32
Jersey.
Prince Street. 32 Prince Street.
32
Greater
Prince Street. And did I say Chairman Hamm? And Chairman Hamm, thank you. And we'll be talking to everybody because we have one more week to continue to make sure we're doing our part to make sure that people get out and vote. Mayor Ras Baraka for Governor 2025. State of New Jersey.
For Governor 2025.
Yep, and of course we want to, also thank the First Lady and Councilwoman Roundtree for coming on. And remember, they're asking everyone to show up tomorrow for Boots on the Ground. That's going to take place at the Performing Arts Center at the NJ PAC. That's going to happen at 11 a.m. As Donna said, get there at 10:30. But the event is going to start at 11 o'clock. So let's make sure that we all come together and let's get out there and support our sisters tomorrow. So I intend on being there with Kim and try and get all of the women in my family to come out, as well as some of the young people. So we'll try to get on the ground with the First Lady tomorrow as well. So we want to thank you all for coming through. I'll leave you with this though. Think about where we are. One of the things that always happened to us as Black people, and I mentioned this to Bashir in our call today. They always put us in a position where we have to choose between the lesser of two evils, right? And at this particular point, there's not a matter of a lesser of two evils. We actually have an opportunity in this primary to vote for a candidate that see us, right? We don't have to worry about whether or not he understands what's going on in our community, what's going on in our homes, what's going on, with us personally. And as Chino talked about earlier, what's going on with brothers returning back home. So this brother doesn't have any of those issues. So we don't have that issue now. But what will come up, and you all can believe this, what will come up if we don't go out and support our brother who could win with our vote, if we don't do that, what's going to happen is they're going to get with him and they're going to say, well, he didn't win the primary. This particular person won the primary because we didn't come out. So we want y'all to support that person. And if we don't support that person, well, you all are going to get Chinarelli. And what's going to happen there. So that becomes that lesser of two evils for us again, right? Let's don't get in that position, brothers and sisters. Let's vote for Mayor Baraka because he represents the best of who we are and every opportunity to solve the issues that are in our community. And not only that, this brother can be the first Black mayor ever, the first Black governor ever in the state of New Jersey. So keep that in mind. And so we'll be back next week. And we may even think about doing a special show during the week where we may be live at some spots and talking to some of the brothers and sisters at the barbershops or salons or some things like that. We're doing that. So we want to thank you all for listening. This is All Politics Are Local, America's number one political hip hop radio show. We've been doing it for 16 years. We 4 years from 20. So as my brother Zaid like to say, we'll catch him where's I?
in the whirlwind.
We'll
And
catch
you
y'all.
don't stop.
Black power, power to the people.
All